Welcome on in to the Central Committee stream with your host, Mike from PA. We are live once again. How is everybody doing this morning? What a beautiful day. It is May 27th, 2025, the end of May. All the graduations are happening or already have happened. Summer break is starting. The days are starting to get warmer. The days are starting to get longer. You know, birds are chirping. Everybody's starting to find out their AC compressor doesn't work. You know, sentient Natalie, thank you for the 8 months. The days are already almost 110. Fuck summer. Where is it that hot? I just got my AC tuned up and this ring's smart. You need to make sure you do maintenance on your outdoor machinery, chat. Veridactyl, thank you for the tier 2 and for starting the morning hype train. Wow. Is my thing broken? Is it not counting the subs? Is it only doing new subs? Oh no. Okay, well, let me just... Okay, well, fuck. This thing is so broken. Holy shit, it's broken. Okay, hold on. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. Okay, we're gonna fix this thing. Let me fix this. This thing is... It's telling me I need to finally upgrade my stream setup. It's saying, Mike, you set this up in like an hour 6 years ago. Maybe it's time. Maybe it's time you update your stream setup. Thank you, Ollie. I appreciate that. Anyway, what are we talking about today? Ken Klippenstein was grilled by the FBI. Trump is caving on European tariffs. He had previously threatened to slap 50% tariffs on the EU, and then he caved, and that led to stocks have risen a strong 1% today, 2% in the NASDAQ. The VIX is down to 19. It looks like the markets don't really consider the risk of tariffs to be very serious. Amethyst, thank you for the 20 tier 1s. If I include grilled, does that make him more owned? Did I say he was owned? Did I say he was owned? I think we've entered a moment where crypto is actually bubbled again. And maybe this is the final, maybe this is the time where it's just gonna stay bubble. I think they may have actually successfully done it, convinced people to buy crypto for some reason. I don't know why. Hassan covering Macron was very funny yesterday. Oh yeah, Macron's wife like punched him in the face, like right on his camera. Kagur, thank you for the 47 months in a row. It was more of a playful slap. I wouldn't call that playful. I would call that basically a punch. She like grabbed his face with her hand like this and went like, and his, you know, like I don't consider that to be okay. It wasn't like she grabbed his face and smushed it. That's different. It was like she like did this. It was more of like a hit. Well, we'll show you. You'll see. Yeah, like. There's no fucking way that's okay. Trump media accounts 2.5 billion Bitcoin treasury to be created from stock sales. Usually pregnant, barefoot pregnant says turning stock sales into a Bitcoin treasury could change the financial game for the better. AI bot. Masculine based. Well, Biden prints paper. Trump stacks digital gold. Let's ride the crypto wave to freedom. Period. Pregnant redhead. This Bitcoin play proves he's still the game changer America needs. As the head of state, everything he does undermines the dollar, but wants other nations to buy more dollars. LOL. The strategy. What can you even say? What can you even say about this platform? You were really right about figuring out a government grift as the way to wealth. It's just funny that grift is now so hollow and obvious. There's only two ways people actually become very wealthy. The first is pure luck. And the second is setting up some sort of government grift. Those are the only ways real wealth exists. Now, there are things that are like entire categories of government grift. Like, I'll give you an example. Car dealer. A car dealer is a middleman created by the government. And it is just, you know, it's kind of falling off now. But for the longest time, most of the like actually wealthy people in communities and exurban communities and suburban communities all around the country were like car dealers. That's like the backbone of the Republican Party, to be honest. Like we are ski-doo dealers, you know, all those kind of guys. Same shit. Like that is the backbone of the Republican Party, like legitimately. Okay, we're not watching music now. Okay, what are we talking about? Ken Klippenstein got grilled by the FBI. Trump is caving on the EU tariffs. The soy right is malding over Hassan. And like, I don't know, am I being delusional? Or does it feel like the vibes are shifting? It feels like to me, like I've been calling vibe shift for a couple weeks now. It just feels like they're still shifting. Or maybe I'm just immune to the right shit. Like Asmongold is like such a pathetic fucking loser. Like I don't know if I'm just coping or I'm just laughing at it and how it's failing. The vibes are not shifting. I just find that completely wrong. Like people are very like centrist Dems are really unpopular. Donald Trump is like Donald Trump. Zoran is close. I think Zoran's gonna win. I think Zoran's gonna win.
I know getting back on your feet after a long holiday weekend is tough, but here's some news that'll put some pep in your step. Like all campaigns, we hired a research firm to poll New Yorkers. What they just found? It's very exciting. Let's start with the headlines. We're now at 27% in the first round of ranked choice voting, firmly in second place behind Andrew Cuomo, with the next campaign in single digits. And in the final round, after every other candidate's been eliminated, it's us at 44% and Cuomo at 56%. That's a 12-point gap. In March, it was 40 points. And we've gotten here while a third of New Yorkers still haven't heard of us. That means we're nowhere near our ceiling. That's where you come in. Yes, we're gonna have more rallies, more TV ads, more videos like this, and that's all thanks to your contributions. Just this past weekend, our volunteers passed 600,000 doors knocked. No one else is even in the same galaxy, let alone the same neighborhoods. With less than a month to go, we're going to win a city that New Yorkers can actually afford and send Andrew Cuomo back to the suburbs. Good morning, New York City. I know
The other element that I think people are really underestimating is Zoran's supporters are much more likely to vote than Cuomo's. All right, like I actually think they might pull this off because of turnout differential. Cuomo is more popular with people that are very low in their political engagement. And so, and like a certain subset of very corrupt political people, which is unfortunately a large chunk of like Democratic primary voters in big cities are people that are directly corrupt. Like they get paid money or they get some kickbacks, which is really the backbone of the Democratic Party in a lot of these places, is the corrupt arrangements that exist, the patronage networks and so forth. So I all in all, I think Zoran's like on track to win the whole thing. Hey, what do you think of Mélenchon in France? Great guy. Isn't that the inverse of how most Dem primary votes go? No, because usually the progressive doesn't have anywhere near the national awareness or campaign of Zoran. Zoran is like maximizing the sort of like online left while also having a strong local base of support. That's what AOC did. Surprisingly enough, this is like AOC's win looked a lot like this. If Zoran wins, that sets a pretty interesting precedent for the rest of the country, especially in big liberal cities. But we'll see. Like if the polls are right, you know, okay, so he does really well and he's nationally known, right? And then Cuomo's going to come in and, you know, let's be honest about this. I want Zoran to win. I really do. But I'm going to be brutally honest for a second, which is he has Donald Trump as president and he has Kathleen Hochul as governor. They're going to work together to fuck him. I hope you understand it. Like the centrist Democrats are going to work with the Trump administration to fuck him up. All right. Like they're going to sabotage everything they can sabotage. The NYPD is probably going to do a sick out or, you know, catch blue flu. And, you know, it's going to do all sorts of shit to like undermine his mayoral, you know, time in office. There's going to be all sorts of like corrupt Democrats within the bureaucracy that are going to fuck him up by literally just breaking things. I think people don't understand just the level of pushback there's going to be, because and the thing that I worry about with Zoran is I worry he's not mean enough. And what I mean by that is he going to go around like a bull in the china closet and fuck these people up? Or is he going to like be surprised when they plant 8 daggers in his back? And the thing about him is he strikes me as the guy who would be surprised about the 8 daggers. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know him, but you know, he's going to have to go in there with sharp elbows, not just good policies. So we'll see. We'll see. Why do I think Brandon Johnson turned out to be a dud? Because he's not good at media. And quite frankly, he thought he could be a progressive and get away with all the petty corruption that regular mayors of Chicago get to do. You either have to be a centrist scumbag or you have to be a Marina type. You can't be a progressive scumbag. And you know, the stuff that Brandon Johnson does is the stuff that every corrupt centrist mayor does, and nobody cares. But when you're a progressive, they're going to bring it to the fore. So you have to be perfect. And he just, with all due respect, hasn't been. And then there's a whole variety of other shit. He wasn't that left-wing to begin with, and just all that other, the problem of winning local elections when you have a hostile Democratic Party above you, constraining all the good shit you want to do. I don't think it would be the end of the world if Zoran didn't win. It might be it might be a blessing, because the timing is just a little bit early for me. I feel like you're going to go in there and have 3 years of absolute obstructionism and sabotage. You know what I mean? And it's like, you have no, like, you need like a president who will want to do this kind of shit. You're going to need a governor who's going to want to do this kind of shit. And being a mayor with those two things hostile to you and wanting to make an example of you, I think it's going to be very hard to actually pull anything off. That's just me being cynical. That's me being cynical. The thing about being a left winger is you have to have good policies and you have to have good timing. That's why it's hard to get anything done, you know? So the timing is just a little bit early for me, but we'll see. Maybe I'm wrong. All right. Let's start off by making fun of Zach from the H3 podcast real quick. I like to do my morning, my Klein Klatch. This is the Klein Klatch, where we make fun of Ethan Klein and his disgusting loser crew.
Where are we going?
It feels like where it was during the war and the Holocaust. It's reminiscent of that time.
It's
Holocaust. Oh, thank you, Zach. Thank you, Zach, for that brilliant addition. This feels like Holocaust times. Oh, really, Zach? It feels like for who? For the fucking Palestinians in Gaza. It's a fucking literal Holocaust of fucking Palestinians. Oh my God, bro, I can't. These fucking people living in fucking Los Angeles. قاعد عامل لي حالك Holocaust. قاير بشكلك يا حمار. شو عم تحكي قاير? What are you talking about? This feels like the fucking Holocaust. There is a literal Holocaust of children in Gaza. Yet this fucking guy is talking about a Holocaust of Jews in fucking California?
Chat, can you guys pull me the exact moment where this happens? Can you guys find it for me? Because Ethan Klein is getting roasted on TikTok because one of the most up-and-coming streamers and content creators, someone who's blowing up right now, her name is Vanilla Mace. We've been kind of simping for her the past couple days. She blew up making fun of Ethan Klein, referencing the content cop, and just overall like shitting on Teddy Fresh. Her name is Vanilla Mace. She's like blowing up. She's like brand new. Like she's basically went from obscurity to going vertical. And you know, that sometimes happens with streaming, which is really cool to see. And she made fun of them. And Ethan Klein has been crashing out about her making fun of him. And going, I can't believe you're dogpiling a Jewish creator. So, if you guys can pull this exact clip, I want to see the full context, if you could.
What?
Basically just going, I mean, where are we going?
It feels like where it was during the war and the Holocaust. It's reminiscent of that time.
It's crazy.
Oh my God, bro. The H3 fucking podcast. We're literally apparently living in Nazi times, not because of Elon Musk, not because of actual anti-Semites that are in power. You know what I mean? Because of Hassan Piker and because of Mike from PA and Sean the Black.
I have to say this, like Ethan Klein just is really shameless, and not in like a fun, you know, transgressive way, but in a legitimately, do you have no shame? Do you have no shame? Thank you, Soon.
We're basically just going, I mean, where are we going?
It feels like where it was during.
Oh, the DC shooting. A Christian Israeli German who called for all sorts of genocidal rhetoric on his Twitter and he works for the Israeli state gets killed, and that's like the Holocaust. Do you know what that's like during the Holocaust? German ambassador was assassinated in France during the Holocaust by a Jewish man. That's the only way, and this is similar to the Holocaust. Now, I want to make it absolutely clear that I do not endorse violence. I do not endorse adventurism. My politics is about building organizations and structures and a political movement outside of individual acts of violence, which are known as propaganda of the deed. Propaganda of the deed is propaganda of the deed is an insurrectionist anarchist praxis. And basically what the anarchists believe is that if individuals take violent direct action, it will inflame public opinion and it will serve as a catalyst for greater action toward social revolution. Now, I think that no political tradition has all the answers, because if it did, we wouldn't be living in such a shitty fucking world. Let's be honest. I don't think any of us have everything figured out yet. Okay. That being said, I am not an anarchist. I am not a proponent of propaganda of the deed, even if I think some elements of what's being explained here logically make sense, right? Like overall, I don't think it actually works, right? I don't think acts of terrorism actually work to achieve social change, which is why, in combination with the TOS, that I would never endorse it. Data from Star Trek thought different. What Data was talking about was having a rebellion, which is not the same thing as propaganda of the deed. A rebellion is when you are setting up an alternative structure to the state, right? That's what makes something a rebellion. When you challenge the state's monopoly on violence with an organized structure that is there to replace it. That is a rebellion. That's different than propaganda of the deed, which is just individuals doing acts of violence. Do you understand the difference between a rebellion and a propaganda of the deed? Adam Panada's history of the word terrorism? Wait, he has a video of that? I never saw that. When did he put that out? That sounds like a really good, interesting video. When was this? Is it how terrorism became a dirty word? Is that the one?
In 1878, Russian revolutionary Vera Zastilic stood before a court in St. Petersburg. She was accused of having shot the city's governor in retaliation for his brutal oppression of the Tsar's political opponents. When
Man, young Adam Panada. I don't know if we're going to watch that today, but that seems like a pretty interesting video. I might have to check it out. Maybe I'll watch it off stream and then we could rewatch. There's a few videos on certain topics that I don't like the free ball. You know what I mean? I don't like the free ball videos. I'm sure it's good. What's this? Saw Guerrero speech. Wasn't it ironically Palestinians who were the first to be called terrorists? No. That word is much older than that. I think the terrorist comes from the 19th century. Like if you late 18th century, from the French terroriste, from the Latin terror, the word was originally applied to supporters of the Jacobins in the French Revolution who advocated repression and violence in the pursuit of the principles of democracy and equality.
In 1870,
yeah, that's the video. You got it. All right. I want to watch that video from Hassan about the right way to protest. We had that video ready to go, and we just ran out of time yesterday. So I want to start with this one, How to Protest Guy by Ethan Klein and Asmongold. It just makes me so happy, dude.
Why do we do this? Well, we did this to figure out if there's any correct way to protest against Israel that is currently doing a genocide, that is an apartheid state. And the answer is, if you listen to Asmongold and Ethan Klein, then no, there isn't. Hasanabi Productions did this fantastic thing where he compiled exactly how to properly resist Israel's genocide, according to Asmongold and Ethan Klein. Now, the reason why I think it's important...
If you want to... Okay, let's just look at the Foreign Terrorist Organizations Bureau of Counterterrorism. You can see exactly what groups were added. I believe the law was passed in 97. Let me see. There might be some history. Foreign terrorist organizations are foreign organizations that are designated by the Secretary of State in accordance with Section 219 of the Immigration and Nationality Act as amended. FTO designations play a critical role and our fight against terrorism are an effective means of curtailing support for terrorist activities and pressure groups to get out of the terrorism business. That's such a fucking weird way of putting it. That's such a weird capitalist-brained way of putting it. So the first groups put on the terrorist watch list were Shining Path, Revolutionary People's Liberation Army, the PFLP General Command, the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine, Palestine Islamic Jihad, Palestine Liberation Front, National Liberation Army, the Liberation Tigers of Tamil Elam, the Kurdistan Workers' Party, Hezbollah, Arakat al-Mujahideen, Hamas, Abdul Sayyaf Group, and Al-Qaeda in 99. So the answer is, it appears that Palestinians were among the first to be named as officially foreign terrorist organizations, including including all political parts of the political spectrum, right? And what's so interesting about this is all three of these groups, all three of these, like, you know, all of the 97 designated groups, these are all people that are suffering organized repression, and some would even argue genocide. You have so, like, that's interesting, right? Not everybody in this 97 designation is like that, but I do find it interesting that Shining Path, not a fan, right? Not a fan of Shining Path, but it is interesting that it's the Tamils and the Palestinians who are being named terrorists first. Isn't that interesting? And did the U.S. have anything to do with fighting these groups? Why are we naming these groups terrorist groups? We weren't fighting them. What is this? Why is the Kurdistan Workers' Party, like, huh? The Kurds facing repression and possible, you know, lack of state, facing repression. Weird. They added cartels this year. Biden added FARC. Embarrassing. All right, let's get going.
Is because in this day and age, there are many different ways of saying that you're against genocide. But obviously, aside from the everyday existence, the everyday murder of children done by an unaccountable criminal entity such as Israel, in direct cooperation with the most powerful, most unaccountable entity on the planet, the United States of America, a criminal enterprise through and through. Aside from that, there's another thing that we have to pay attention to, which is how to protest. Because obviously, if you think you are protesting against Israel and you're doing it right, you're most likely not doing it right. So let's take a look at how to do this. Let's take a look at how to do this, because there's got to be a way to do it appropriately. Firstly, stop protesting in the streets. Blocking the roads is an inconvenience for Asmongold, and he doesn't want to be bothered. Okay.
I don't really give a about what Palestine's problems are or Israel's problems are, but if somebody is blocking the road, I do care. And I will tell you also that if they are blocking the road and
dude, you never leave your house. Why do you care about the like that? Like, and this is what's so funny. This motherfucker never leaves his house. You know, like, you're surrounded by takeout bags and roaches. Like, what are you talking about? Oh, if someone's blocking the road. If somebody's blocking the road. Shut the fuck up. You're looking at Twitter videos of someone blocking a road. Shut up.
I'm trying to get through the road, I will reflexively be against them. Like, what are you for? Okay, let's vote against.
Okay, well, good thing you don't even have to vote for it. That's just like a permanent state of affairs in America. It doesn't really matter. Secondly, if you're Jewish and you peacefully protest Israel's genocide,
Asmongold is the type of guy going, oh, you're fighting against a genocide, but I was slightly inconvenienced for 5 seconds. Well, now I support the genocide. Like, what?
And we'll call you a token Jew who does not represent the Jewish majority. Well, that's
like the behavior of that is like, to call it brain dead is insulting to the brain dead. It is like, it's not even really an argument or a thought. It's more of like a 2-year-old, like a 2-year-old's behavior. Being told they can't have ice cream for breakfast. Like, it's not even a thought. Like, I actually think that is not even something a human being, like, if you say something like that, like, honest to God, you're not a human being. You're more of like a pustule on the ass of humanity.
Okay, hold on. That's weird.
I am so proud to be marching with so many Jews.
Yes, the Jews. The Jews are here. Did we mention that? Mm-hmm. Give the Jewish guy the mic.
Gentiles of all ages.
Yes. And of course there are Jews there, right? And Jews have are allowed to have different perspectives and stuff, but this man is like the embodiment of a Jewish token. Like, holy. So let's say 10,000 Jews are members of Jewish Voices for Peace, and they tour all around the country, showing up at every like pro-Palestinian protest or whatever the they're doing, and they just Palestinian Jewish Voices for Peace. And they
So according to Jewish Voice for Peace, they have 32,000 dues-paying members. In other words, not just people that join, but literally pay money to the org. So he's saying there's 10,000 Jews that go around. First of all, even if it were only 10,000 Jews, like how many Jewish people actively were involved in the civil rights movement, right? Like this is a large percentage of people.
They tour all around the country, showing up at every like pro-Palestinian protest or whatever the they're doing, and they just they parade them around like here's one of the good Jews. It's 10,000 people of 6 million in America, and part of the disgusting propaganda that they do is that they pretend, they try to convince everybody that this is this represents the Jewish majority.
Ethan is a guy who peaked in high school. No, he's not. Ethan Klein never peaked. Ethan Klein never peaked. Like Ethan Klein was not popular in high school. He made a shitty YouTube video when YouTube was brand new, and he just kind of hung on until the money started to get printed. Like what do you mean peaked? And listen, when you have an audience, people will kiss your ass. And he had at one point a very large audience, and he still has a lot of Gen X and millennial, people who found him very early on in their YouTube career and just continued to watch. I don't know how to put it nicely other than let's just say it's not the brightest people in the world that like Ethan Klein. Okay. It's really, I don't know how else to put it in a friendly way, but at this point, if you're still an Ethan Klein fan, he's not doing comedy, but he's kind of like talking around politics, but he's not talking about politics, right? Like he doesn't have any analysis. He doesn't have any perspective. He doesn't know anything about history. He doesn't really know anything, right? So there's no reason, he has no connection to it. So there's no reason to really watch him for that. So it's more like he's talking around politics. And even if you just like drama, he's not that interesting, even from a drama point of view.
It will never not be interesting to me that as a Jewish man, Ethan Klein is saying, no, actually, the prominent Jewish activists that are against Israel are actually in the wrong. They do not represent the majority of Jewish opinion. The majority of Jews actually love what Israel is doing. That seems insane. It would be like if I were to, in the way
Ethan got incredibly lucky. He was able to move from Israel to New York because he was hired to be an editor for Filthy Frank. His Vape Nation video was his attempt at that style of content.
Hey, what up, peeps? It's your boy Ethan from H3H3. The sun finally came out. It's a beautiful, nice, warm day here in New York City, and I wanted to show you all at home what I'm about. A little peep into the world of EK from H3. Vape Nation!
It's so funny that Ethan Klein calls other people fat. Like his entire video is just like looking at him wearing dumpy clothes and zooming in on his gut. Like, oh my God. Incredible.
Today, I'm on a mission to rip the fattest vape. So I'm headed down to my favorite smoke shop in New York City to vape up.
One joke. We've gotten one joke so far. Him saying Vape Nash and just zooming out on the various lumps on his body. Going, look how fat and ugly this slob is. Look at his socks with sandals.
Welcome to Vape City, home of the fattest cloud rippers in the world. I'm here to kick it up a notch and become one of the best. Let's check it out.
Hey, what's going on, man?
Hey, how you doing, buddy?
Heard y'all have vapes here.
Yeah, we do.
Cool, dude.
sick. So I'm looking for like a fat, something I can rip like fat on. Like the fattest rip you've got here.
Hands that come like this kind. Just, build it by yourself.
This was what we called comedy in 2016, I guess. This is what we called comedy in 2016. I gotta be honest, chat. I didn't watch any of that kind of shit. I honestly don't know YouTube culture, even though I'm older, because it was just, I watched good shit. I was watching funny shit. You avoided the awful edgy bullshit from the area. But why would I watch it? It's not funny. It's not good. Like, why would I watch? Like, I was an adult, I guess, with money, so I could like watch what I wanted to watch. You know what I mean? Like, not a lot of money, but I at least had enough money as an adult to like do the stuff that I wanted to do. You know what I mean? Like, why would I ever watch that? The only oh man, I was already in politics for 2 years when Vape Nation came out. I had ran for office 2 years before Vape Nation came out. What a complete fucking loser. Holy shit, dude.
In the wave of Islamophobic sentiment rising during like the peak of ISIS activity in the region, if I were to be like, guys, do not listen to any Muslim that tells you that ISIS doesn't represent their faith, you are Islamophobic. If you don't defend ISIS, I, as a Muslim man, am telling you, the overwhelming majority of Muslims love what ISIS is doing, and you have to love it too. Otherwise, you are an Islamophobic person. That's what this is. That is the literal equivalent. He's like, if I were to go after someone who is who's saying that like ISIS has nothing to do with Islam, a Muslim that's saying that and being like, that's a token. He's a liar. Very strange, especially strange because he's pro-Palestine. But
he's not pro-Palestine. He's not pro-Palestine. Can we stop even being sarcastic? Can we stop being even sarcastic? Ethan Klein is not pro-Palestine. He's a scumbag. He brought on like a pro-Israeli Atlantic Council propagandist for Israel genocide, who, by the way, his entire family was killed by Israel. And yet he still hates us more than he hates Israel. Like, that's batshit crazy. That is batshit crazy. Okay, this is completely nothing to do with what we're saying, man. Come on.
Interesting. All right.
But it's not. Anyway, whatever.
Does not represent it.
Thirdly, stop protesting on college campuses. It makes Asmongold feel uncomfortable. He also thinks you should be arrested and or deported if you participate.
Shit, again? Oh no! Breaking Columbia protesters are once again occupying the Butler Library while chanting from the river to Jesus Christ. Can we just please send in the National Guard and arrest these people? Like, what are we doing? What are they doing? Every single person that did this, I think they should figure out if they were a student. And if they were a student, I think they should get expelled. And if they weren't a student, I think they should get charged for trespassing. That's what you do it. And yeah, exactly. And if they weren't a citizen, I think they should get deported.
Common sense. I think it should be Kent State 2.0. Those guys were clearly in the wrong. I loved what the National Guard did at Kent State. Based.
My point is when
don't use emancipatory slogans like "from the river to the sea" when protesting. It makes Ethan feel uncomfortable. Obviously, Ethan's personal feelings are infinitely more important than I don't know, people saying like "free Palestine" or "from the river to the sea."
He spent zero time promoting AB's pro-Palestine fundraiser. That's why we were able to raise like 8 times as much money as AB was, because we raised a lot more money for them, because Ethan Klein doesn't care to support pro-Palestinian causes. That's why. And, you know, I want to thank AB for raising money and doing that. That's great. But it has nothing to do with the rest of H3. They couldn't care less.
Palestine would be free. Obviously, we have to factor in his personal opinions on this. Duh.
My point is when Israelis hear from the ocean to the sea, they hear
from the ocean to the sea.
All of Israel.
I don't understand. If a movement is for peace between two people, and one people is telling you they're not comfortable with the statement, shouldn't we change the statement to something that both?
Yeah, all lives matter. Black Lives Matter makes me uncomfortable. I'm a white conservative man, and I think when someone says Black Lives Matter, I instantly assume you want to kill all white people. Therefore, you have to say all lives matter.
And so it's very painful when politicians won't stand up for everyone and say all lives matter, and instead say only black lives matter.
Actually, you should say white lives matter. Why are Black Lives Matter protesters not saying white lives matter? Don't bother donating to pro-Palestinian charities. According to Ethan, it's not real activism and has no real impact.
Creators for Palestine raised $1.6 million. That's fantastic. Literally negligible. They've received billions of dollars. It's a good thing. Has $1.6 million had an outcome on anything happening in Gaza? Absolutely not.
Of course, if you donate to one of these fundraisers.
Despite what you've read on TikTok and Twitter, I've donated $6,500 to a Palestinian charity after the war started.
Hey, Ethan Klein, thank you for the dono. Even after you spend the
Oh my, like it's a lot of money. He's acting like $6,500 from him is a lot of money. He's such a disgusting fucking slug, dude.
The rest of the year trying to deplatform the people that have done these fundraisers, then you're a stalwart ally of the Palestinians, of course. Remember.
How could not even a single thing happen?
Well, Ethan,
tell me. Give me the good news. She better be permanently banned. I'm not even talking. I'm being dead serious. She should not be.
Well, let's start here, right?
She is a hateful bigot who should not be allowed on this website. And Hassan and all of his all the people that rotate around him, that they need to be taken also a page and know that they need to stop with the extremism.
You're pro-Palestine because you donated to one of these charities and then you wanted to take it down, but yeah.
Like, raise money. That's good. That's the easiest thing you can do is just give money, right? Good. Let's talk about real activism. Let's talk about enacting meaningful change. Total fucking failures.
Yeah. Okay. Do not support any military resistance to Israel's genocide. Asmongold and Ethan will just call you a terrorist supporter. Oh no. Okay. So can we at least contextualize like why these militancies form in the region?
Some fresh criticism for Hassan, who is an outright supporter of terrorism, quite literally. He is a champion for terrorism and a supporter of terrorism. And if you don't believe me, watch the video. Thank you very much. That's all I have to say about that.
When you say that you support the actions of a terrorist organization and you interview them on your stream and then you play their propaganda, you end up getting detained for extra questioning, re-entering the country. Nice! And I think that Hassan and everybody else, including myself, let's all sit together and say a collective thank you to the government for keeping us safe.
Shut the f up, you fucking cockroach. Oh my God.
You said thank you once this entire meeting? No, in this entire meeting you said thank you.
What a disgusting little creature. Thank you for defending our nation state to the Trump administration for detaining a Twitch streamer. Like, Asmongold is such a liar on this issue, okay? He knows that I am not a dangerous entity. He has to present it as such because he has to like consistently up the ante. He has to consistently up the ante because he is captured by the interests of the broad right-wing movement that is formed in his chat as he consistently farms right-wing dumbasses. Would you debate him? Yes, but he runs away from that sort of thing because he knows he would.
I'm only going to base my support in this petty drama. Who could say literally more often? Oh man, petty.
Be humiliated
petty,
because
guys.
all he
It's
can do
petty
is
drama.
just like chirp from his hug box, and that's it. And it is what it is. Israel killed another 50 people today in the residential building. Another 29
It's like
died.
funny because like Majority Report with Sam Cedar made Dave Rubin videos every fucking day for years and years and years and years and years and years and years. Is that petty drama? The point of showing you the Dave Rubin video spam, Dave Rubin, Jimmy Dore, Dave Rubin, Jimmy Dore, Dave. These are all Dave Rubin videos. The reason why it's not, quote, petty drama is because these are some of the most prominent political commentators for the right and for the pro-Israeli side. And they are actively engaged in a deplatforming attempt. Shut the fuck up. Final warning. This is your final warning. Consider this your total and complete final warning. All right? Everybody clear? Final warning.
to starvation. Will Ethan Asmongold or any other drama adjacent content creator talk about it? Of course not. It's not more important than trying to get Hassan or other pro-Palestinian content creators banned. One more, I almost forgot. Do not be a Muslim while living in Gaza.
It's a deliberate attempt to flood SEOs and discredit them. It's a tactic. Yes, it's good to fight back against these people. And my biggest mistake in my career is that I haven't tried to fight back against these YouTube scum attacking me for years. That was my biggest mistake, is not occupying those spaces and not being on TikTok and not being on YouTube. That's my mistake. And I'm fixing that mistake.
It's hard for Asmongold to feel sympathy for you if you're being genocided. I don't give a f. They're terrible people. They come from an inferior culture. Okay, this is the last one. So obviously, if you are existing as a Palestinian in the Gaza Strip, then yeah, you can't do that either. Why would he debate you? You're sitting in LA talking about wars 100,000 miles away. Shut the f up. Great.
How big is the planet? How big is the planet? Afro puffs. How big is the planet? Do you think it's 100,000 miles in diameter? Dumb as fuck.
Question. He's in proximity to the Gaza Strip. His proximity to the Gaza Strip is like negligible in comparison to mine. I am more knowledgeable than he is, though, especially considering that I do talk to people that are in the Gaza Strip and have interviewed people that have escaped the Gaza Strip and have read plenty of books on the issue that pertains to the Palestinian plight over the course of the past 77 years of occupation. If you are talking about this sort of thing, then, you know, if you have these firmly held convictions about what must be done to the Palestinians, then perhaps, you know, it would be okay to have this back and forth with the person that you are consistently calling a terrorism supporter that needs to be deplatformed.
And so that's it. Permaban? Yes, of course. I'm going to be honest. I've been pretty reasonable about this for a long time. I think they should ban him.
And that the government is doing a good job detaining. Don't you think that would be fair? Of course, you don't think about anything, and you certainly don't think about this either. It's not the proximity to what's going on is not the problem for you. The problem for you is what I'm saying. And because you can't actually argue against what I'm saying, you have to find something else to cling on to. I think if we're looking at two individuals who are engaging in political commentary, and one party is just not even knowledgeable at all about it, and the other party is at the very least knowledgeable and making an effort to understand the plight of the Palestinians, the people that are being genocided, I think you're a responsible enough adult to make up your own mind on who has more knowledge on the situation, who would be more impactful to talk to about this kind of stuff.
If you want to consider it,
the thing that like Hassan doesn't understand about people like Asmongold is Asmongold doesn't care about anything. All right, he's just doing the triangulation against whatever Hassan is saying. He's going to say the opposite. He doesn't believe in anything. He doesn't care about facts. He doesn't care about truth. He just thinks of the internet as a game. That's it. And the game is to make him, you know, have a higher viewership. He does not care. He does not care about anything. He's Mr. Beast. If Mr. Beast had absolutely no principles and no intent to create anything ever, it doesn't matter. Because the thing is, what these guys don't understand, or maybe they do understand it, which is like when you have a position in politics, the people that are opposed to that position will be opposed to you. And so the more prominent you get, the more popular you get, the more of the enemies of the positions you hold are going to show up. And so if you are a sociopath, narcissist, with no principles, you could just position yourself opposite to prominent people who hold positions and just spend your time saying they're bad. Because if I say arguments that are completely airtight and there is no way to dispute them on the facts, right? If I say things that are completely correct in every element of my argument, I will still get attacked because I have these positions and they don't like that I'm able to articulate them well. So what do? They attack me. Now, if you study rhetoric, we talk about this a lot. There's ethos, there's pathos, and there is logos. Those are the elements of an argument, right? And elements of persuasion. Pathos is like the emotional arguments, the things that draw you in as a human being, that pluck your heartstrings, whatever. Logos is the logic. is the substance of the position. And then pathos is, why do you have credibility? Oh, sorry. Ethos is why you have credibility. Pathos, I said pathos twice. Ethos is why you have credibility. Why should people listen to you? Okay? And so, if when they see me, the very first thing they are doing is attack Mike's ethos. Attack Mike's ethos. Attack Mike's credibility. Mike is this XYZ bad thing. You don't even need to listen to him. Don't listen to his logos. Don't listen to his argument, please. He's just so bad. He's bad because made up bullshit. He's cringe. You don't want to be cringe, do you? He's what was the other thing they said like recently? Oh, he's fat. Mike's fat. It's just made up bullshit. They don't want to actually say, okay, Mike is wrong. Mike says this is wrong because why? I beg for that. I beg for that. I live for that. That would be my happiest day if somebody tried to refute what I say with arguments. It would be awesome. It would fucking rule. But it never fucking happens. Ever. Like, it's crazy.
Genocide as a systematic killing of a group of people. They have genocide built into Sharia law right now. So no, I'm not going to cry a fucking river when people who have genocide that's baked into their laws are getting genocided. I don't give a fuck. They're terrible people. It's not even a question. It's crazy that people don't see it that way. They'd be doing the same thing.
Asmund has no idea what Sharia law is. Asmund doesn't know what Sharia law is. Asmund doesn't know what common law is. He doesn't know what the system we live in is. He's a fucking idiot. He's a fucking moron.
And how much did they kill? As many as they can. They're not able to kill as many people as Israel because they don't.
I mean, that's just wrong. Hamas had plenty of opportunities to kill more civilians, and they did not do it. They were not on a rampage killing every civilian they saw. That's just not true. I mean, it's just objectively not true. Now, you could say civilians were intentionally killed by Hamas and that was a war crime. That's true. But they were not shooting everyone they saw. They just weren't.
Don't have as many bombs and as many weapons. But if they did, they'd be doing the same thing.
You also can't use terms created by the genocidal state itself. Oh, yeah, you can't say Hasbara. You will read people saying I'm doing Hasbara, which means propaganda in Hebrew. What they really mean when they say Hasbara is Jewish propaganda, because they just saying propaganda isn't good enough to describe what the Jews do. That's why they use the Hebrew word for it. Which, by the way,
is nothing to do with Jews, you fucking scumbag. It has to do with Israeli propaganda, not, quote, Jewish propaganda. Can you imagine him saying, like, George W. Bush is doing Christian propaganda? That's what Ethan Klein is basically trying to pull off. Benjamin Netanyahu is a Bush-Trump guy and trying to cause us to get into a war with Iran. And Ethan Klein considers himself progressive. You fucking lunatic.
Wait, ironically, is the word that Israel uses in its attempts to convince others in the Western world. This is why people say Hasbara. Hasbara is not Jewish propaganda. Hasbara is Israeli propaganda. Hasbara is propaganda at the behest of Israel. They have entire departments dedicated to this. They spend a shit ton of money on this, actually, openly. Like the Knesset openly states that there are Hasbara initiatives that they are spending additional funds on. There's a special word for Chinese, Russian, or North Korean propaganda, or is it Jewish propaganda? It's so sneaky and insidious that it must be specifically, specially qualified. This dude was talking about noticing, which is a dog whistle.
I don't.
Anyway, that's I mean that's just him trying to show his chat that he is based, while simultaneously showing his chat that he is still pro-Israel. But he's still based, though. Don't worry, chat. He's still based.
These people,
he's pro-Israel, but in a based way.
People are not your allies. They are not the same as us. They come from an inferior culture that is horrible. It kills people for their identity, and it is directly antithetical to everything Western values stand for. And
what's so funny about Asmongold, the dumb fuck piece of shit, is that the United States of America is the prime mover behind Islamism. Oh yeah, no, I probably can't watch that on Twitch, unfortunately.
It is an inferior culture in all ways.
That's crazy.
It is that
fucking
simple.
Crazy, dude.
No, I don't feel
That's
bad for them.
crazy.
I don't feel sorry for them. I don't care. I don't support them.
So
Absolutely
yeah, why did we do this? Well, we did this to figure out if there's any correct way to protest against Israel that is currently doing a genocide, that is an apartheid state. And the answer is, if you listen to Asmongold and Ethan Klein, then no, there isn't.
I don't know what to say. Like, I think the thing is that I've been pondering is, why are so many people nihilistic zombies? You can't even say that they are hedonists because, like, they don't even live life. They shamble around in a state of terminal like stupor. There's a phrase that the Zoomers have been using a lot lately, which is bed rot. And like Asmongold is bed rot for virgin incels. And it is, I think the best way to describe Asmongold's audience is people who have truly and fully given up. And the only thing they can enjoy in life is their attempts to be sadistic on the internet or find joy in others' suffering. They're so devoid of hope and so devoid of purpose in life and so devoid of joy and love that the only thing they can imagine themselves doing is reveling in others' misery. That's it. Like, I don't even know how you begin to approach people like that. They're already dead.
Look at all these fucking slugs. Everyone's a fucking idiot but me.
I love Connor O'Malley, dude. I don't have time to watch I don't really want to watch a 5-minute comedy video right now because it's ruining my mood by making me laugh. But Connor's the fucking best, dude. I love that man. He's the best, dude. He's so good. He had a small role in Friendship. Yeah, I saw Friendship yesterday, chat. I saw it yesterday with Nandre. And my general feeling about it was, let me ponder more. I've been thinking a lot about it and I don't have something concise to say right now. I was going to bullshit you, but I don't know that I have something truly concise to say about it. If anyone doesn't understand what black pill ideology is, Asmon, yeah, I would say that Asmon is black pilled. I think Asmon is black pilled. Like, Asmon is the ultimate black pill, which is like, it doesn't matter how much money you have. Like, it'll never get better for him, right? It doesn't matter how much clout, how much money, how much fame, it'll never get better for him. He was just born to be miserable. Now, none of that is true, but he's created an environment where if his life gets better, it'll actually be bad for him. So he's just trying to spread that misery. Oh?
On today's episode, China is building a nuclear power plant on the moon, SpaceX has a new Starship launch date, and NASA cuts funding to the ISS. China and Russia have just signed a new deal to build a nuclear power plant on the moon. We know that China's space program has been in talks with the Russians for several weeks, with officials on both sides hinting that a nuclear development was in the works. The power would be required for China's moon base, known as the International Lunar Research Station. Announced in 2021, the ILRS will begin construction in the 2030s and will be a fully autonomous robotic installation at the lunar South Pole. From the very beginning, this moon base was pitched as a joint venture between China and Russia, and then mentions of Russian involvement faded in 2022 as the war in Ukraine broke out. But now it appears that the original plan is back on, with this nuclear partnership being signed during the Chinese president's recent visit.
I'm not a fan of billboard.
To Moscow. While the construction phase of the moon base and nuclear power plant will be fully autonomous, both nations have promised that this is about laying a foundation for their people to operate on the moon. In a statement earlier this month, Russia's space agency wrote, "The station will conduct fundamental space research and test technology for long-term, uncrewed operations of the ILRS, with the prospect of a human being's presence on the moon." Power will be a critical factor in any longer-term moon base, because the moon has an extended day and night cycle that sees 14 Earth days of continuous sunlight, followed by 14 days of total darkness. That makes solar power incredibly challenging. There is battery storage, but those are heavy, and we know that batteries don't like the cold. When the sun sets on the moon, it gets unfathomably cold. So nuclear is an ideal solution to the lunar environment, and the Chinese could not ask for a better partner in this regard. Russia has significant knowledge in constructing nuclear power plants, as the Russian company Rosatom is currently the world's largest manufacturer of nuclear reactors. That, combined with 7 decades of spaceflight experience, makes them the best equipped nation in the world to actually build a power plant on the moon. The reactor will likely be a cut-down variant of existing plants for ease of construction and transport. They will also need to make some adjustments to the design in order for it to operate in a lower gravity environment, but the core function will remain the same. It's unclear where the fuel for a nuclear reactor will come from. On Earth, they're typically fed manufactured pellets of uranium, which could be sent to the moon on supply rockets. But in the future, these nations could mine their own fuel straight on the moon, as it's been proven there are deposits of uranium across the lunar surface. According to China's plan, construction of the moon base will span from 2031 to 2035, with it finally being brought online in 2026. They will construct the research station as well as the power plant down here on Earth.
Somebody asked, what if it blows up? Well, a couple things here. Nuclear reactors, the ones that you're thinking of, are called second generation nuclear power plants. And they are typically pressurized water reactors, which means that the cooling cycle is pressurized water. And so when those systems overheat, they can cause meltdowns, and then they could also cause the water to separate into oxygen and hydrogen. That's what happened at Fukushima. And that's why that Fukushima, there was an explosion. Now, advanced nuclear power plants are 4th generation nuclear power plants. They are passively safe. That means that if they get hotter than the range of a reactor is operating out and producing electricity, it automatically shuts off the reaction. So it's set up in such a way that higher temperatures equals the neutron flux prevents a further runaway, criticality, like you see in what happens in 2nd generation nuclear power plants when the cooling loop is disabled. If that makes sense, good. If it doesn't, a shorter answer is new reactors can't melt down. Are you pro-nuclear or anti-nuclear? I would say that I am ambivalent on nuclear, which makes me an anti-nuclear. People would call me pro-nuclear. Anti-nuclear people would call me pro-nuclear, which is fine. I'm more pro-fusion. Like, I want us to spend money on research and developing new energy technologies. I want to live at a point where basically electricity is free, where we produce so much of it and it's so clean that it's basically free. Don't count on it. Physics funding from NSF is set to be cut by 85%. Don't worry. Not fusion, not restaurants, not Chinese fusion restaurants.
Nuclear fusion. The holy grail of clean energy. Atoms smashed together, creating 4 times more energy per kilogram of fuel than traditional nuclear fission, and 4 million times more than burning coal, with no greenhouse gases or long-term radioactive waste. If all goes to plan, it'll be at least a $1 trillion market. The problem?
The only working fusion power plants right now in the universe are stars.
Now it's a worldwide race to change that. The closest anyone's come.
Obviously, China is king, but I'm cynical. I'm a physics student. Here's what I want you to understand. The United States of America is currently important, but Donald Trump and the centrist Democrats are ending that importance. We're going to be about as important as Poland is today. Polish people live great lives. It's not the end of the world. China has 5 times as many people. Their governmental system is focused on improving the lives of their citizens, on investing in technology and research and science. It's fine. We will get the trickle down benefits. It is what it is, you know? There are no nationalists in America anymore. I'm probably, and I say this as an insult, I am probably the most nationalistic political commentator in America. And what I mean by that is not that I believe in nationalism. I don't. I just mean that I actually care about Americans like suffering and think that's bad. But pretty much every other politician or political commentator you see out there, they don't really give a fuck. They honestly don't. They want to destroy half of Americans at best. And if you're like Republican, they see you as cattle. So there really aren't anybody, there isn't anybody out there who wants to see American lives get better, right? In the aggregate. There isn't. There's no one to vote for. There's no one to support. And the one thing I'll say about China is that the Chinese government wants Chinese lives to get better. And that's such a low bar, right? And why do they want Chinese lives to get better? Well, because the Chinese Communist Party believes the only way they'll be able to stay in power is if Chinese people feel like things are getting better and they're seeing progress. And they're like, they know that the moment Chinese people start to feel like their lives are getting worse, they're going to have a problem. So they're incentivized to try to make Chinese lives better. And they've succeeded for 40 straight years. It is a straight line up. And in America, there is no system. There is no system set up to try to enforce, you know, American government to give a shit about you. And they don't. We live in a scammer society. We live in a scammer society. Like, legitimately, we do. I don't know how to fix it. Personally, I'm in favor of the death penalty expanding. Now, this is going to be different than every other left-winger. It's okay. I think that corrupt politicians should be executed. Personally. I also think it should be harder. I think everything in life should be easier. I think your taxes should be done for you by the government. I think you should have health care without having to sign up for anything, check any box. I feel like you should be able to go and get whatever education you are qualified for academically. I think you should automatically be in a union when you get hired at a job. I think shit should just work. I don't think that you should have to spend your time worrying about dumb bullshit. This year, for example, so I'm getting up there in age, and so I'm like going through the health insurance shit, and it's like I'm so fucked over because I'm a 1099 business owner. The government is set up to fuck me up so badly. And the fact is, I have the wherewithal to correct for that. And I can tell you right now that 95% of people, or, you know, at least 80% of people would never have the wherewithal. They would be totally fucked if they were in my position, if they didn't have the like help and knowledge that I do. And that is a broken system. That is a fucking broken system.
Before launching them to the moon in pieces. China has planned for at least 5 construction missions.
My secret ingredient, fraud. No, my secret ingredient is excessive autistic hyperfixation earlier in life.
The upcoming Super Heavy class Long March 9 rocket, which is the Chinese version of the Starship. However, this timeline seems ambitious at best. No one has ever built a moon base, let alone a nuclear power plant on the moon, and we know what can happen to even the best laid plans. All of this Chinese and Russian posturing comes at the same time that NASA is slashing and burning their own lunar exploration roadmap. The Gateway space station that was envisioned as a pit stop.
They basically, like, NASA is cutting all of their lunar shit and giving money to Tesla. And just like the Hyperloop, it's vaporware. So China is going to have moon bases mining fucking fusion fuel, helium-3. And we ain't gonna have shit.
For American
SpaceX, Tesla, same shit.
Astronauts on their way to the surface of the moon is now all but dead, even though large portions of the station have already been constructed. Beyond that, development of NASA's SLS moon rocket has also ground to a halt. The existing boosters are still planned to be used for Artemis 2 in 2026 that will fly a crew around the moon and back again. Then for a human landing in 2027 with Artemis 3, but that will be the final flight for SLS, if those missions even go forward as planned. A big part of that plan at NASA, both figuratively and literally, is going to be the SpaceX Starship, America's next moon lander, and a rocket that promises to carry the future of human space exploration. But it's not exactly going great either. SpaceX has signaled that they are finally ready to launch their Starship Super Heavy rocket again. It's now been 2.5 months since the previous test flight, which ended with the rocket's upper stage experiencing a catastrophic failure in space and returning to Earth as a flaming...
The Starship is so far behind schedule, it's insane. Why haven't there hasn't been any Starship launches in so long? When's the next one? Oh, is one today? One's today? Well, look at that. Orbital Launch Mount A at Starbase. Destination suborbital still? They're still on suborbital launches? And they're reflying Booster 14. So I guess this is one that had been landed and caught.
Cloud of debris, which was essentially a repeat of the Starship flight previous to that, which also featured a flaming cloud of debris raining down on the Atlantic Ocean.
Oh no.
What made those last two flights different from previous Starship testing was the introduction of the company's new design for the upper stage vehicle, Starship V2. As we've seen, there are still some kinks that need to be worked.
Now, if you ever played any kind of rocket simulation game, you understand the value of staging. And I've always found the Starship kind of interesting in that it doesn't have any boosters. It's like, why can't you slap some boosters on the side? Because it seems to struggle. It seems to really struggle to get to orbit. And this is supposed to be like taking a lot of cargo to orbit, but it's empty and it struggles.
Worked out here, but SpaceX is now feeling confident that the new ship will make it through a successful re-entry.
Also, 30 engines is crazy. 30 engines is crazy because it's like, that means you have to have 30 sets of plumbing. You have to have like so much, like it's 33. Okay, yeah, 33. I mean, listen, I'm not a rocket scientist. You probably didn't know this, but like,
though the biggest change for this next flight plan is actually going to come from the Super Heavy booster, Starship's first stage. SpaceX will reuse a previously flown booster for the first time. This is the same booster from Starship Flight 7 in January 2025.
In a lot of ways, the Soviet Union was more advanced than we are even to today. We're just kind of slowly catching up. Another thing was they had the ability to build like massive titanium structures, which we still don't know how to do. But again, people will, you know, it's fine. People get mad at whenever you point this out. They think it's like, oh, the Soviet Union was starving to death. And it's like, no, it fell because of politics.
Stage on that mission exploded, but Super Heavy returned for a catch back at the Mechazilla launch tower. And now, after 4 months of refurbishment, SpaceX believes that the same booster is ready for round 2. Since this would be the first time a Starship booster will be reflown, it could pose a significant new challenge. No one knows how it's going to perform, and since the primary goal for this next flight will be getting the V2 ship into orbit and on course for a successful re-entry, the company has made a choice to avoid taking any big risks with the booster. They're not quite ready to find out what happens when you try and land a booster for the second time. So to avoid excessive risk to the ground systems at the launch site, SpaceX will bring this Super Heavy down for an ocean landing instead. This was confirmed in space.
Wait, what? So they're going backwards?
SpaceX's new launch license for Flight 9, which they had to refile with the FAA to account for the change from previous missions. In pursuit of a better outcome for their Starship, SpaceX has invested a lot of time in ground testing with the new vehicle. Ship 35, the third V2 build, has been brought out for static fire testing twice in the past week. One of those tests focused on replicating the orbital insertion burn, with the Starship lighting its 6 engines for about 1 minute. And that was actually the third time we've seen this particular ship on the test stand. The first static fire that happened last month was really interesting because it appeared like SpaceX was able to push the rocket to failure during that test. We saw a big piece of the engine go flying out from underneath. And
that's not good.
Didn't happen on the most recent test fire, so probably a good indication that SpaceX has fixed something. Will it be enough? That's what we're going to find out this month. Initially, SpaceX was promising a launch as early as this week, but it seems that timeline has already slipped. Flight 9 was originally planned to launch on the 21st of May, but new info points to a later date. New notices to both mariners and airmen tell us that the Starship will launch on the 26th instead. And while SpaceX is making continuous progress,
it's so funny to have like power poles and not have your electricity power be buried. It's just so funny.
NASA appears to be struggling just to make ends meet on their own projects. the American Space Agency will make the tough decision to cut their International Space Station budget ahead of its retirement in 5 years. One significant change that could come under this new policy is fewer missions to the station. This means that a smaller crew will be permanently manning the station, taking the number from 7 to only 6. Russia would retain their 3 cosmonauts, however, NASA would begin launching only 3 astronauts on Crew Dragon missions instead of the 4 that they have always contracted. Once approved, this would begin next year with the launch of Crew 12 in February. Fewer astronauts per launch will make the ISS much cheaper to maintain in coming years, as they can cut off a fourth of the supplies they would otherwise have to carry into space. Fewer astronauts, however, would also affect the amount of science and research they are capable
so crazy how it seems like we're falling back in technology
of aboard the ISS. So why change now when the end of mission for the ISS won't come until 2030? Well, recently the Trump administration has unveiled new budget cuts to all non-defense programs, including some important space projects. This so-called skinny budget proposal will affect the ISS in the same way if approved. This makes it seem like NASA is just preparing for inevitable—
You know what America needs? More austerity. That'll make American economy grow. It's so manifestly stupid, and yet people believe it. It's crazy.
Which will hopefully make it easier to get ready for 2026 when the new budget would go into effect. This would be the first time that NASA funding for the ISS has ever been reduced year over year, which may sound like a crisis, but the most likely reason for this change actually has nothing to do with NASA's proposed budget under President Trump. In fact, what NASA is probably looking for is a way to redistribute the funds into a new project, the deorbit of the ISS. This has led them to contract SpaceX to develop a deorbit vehicle based off of their existing Dragon spacecraft. Now, obviously, this is an expensive contract, reaching up to $850 million, and with NASA's ever-shrinking budget—
$850 million to destroy a $1 trillion structure.
They were forced to pull this money from current ISS science budgets. However, cutting science projects on the station won't be nearly enough to find even half of the deorbit program's budget. That is why NASA will also be laying off ground teams that monitor the ISS. The Johnson Space Center Flight Operations Directorate and the Marshall Space Flight Center Payload and Mission Operations Division are being asked to lay off at least 50% of their staff. They will also draw out the duration of existing missions to the station, which would now be 8 months instead of the customary 6. NASA addressed this new plan by saying the organization, quote, continues to review operations.
So in other words, they're literally sacrificing the bodies of astronauts so they can cut budgets to spend more on the Pentagon.
And will make future adjustments as necessary to support the space station's needs, crew safety, and maximize science capability as the agency prepares for the station's retirement. This means that nothing is set in stone yet. However, it is clear that some changes need to happen in order to be able to fund both the ISS as well as its retirement plan.
The beginning of the video was China's building a nuclear power plant for a permanent moon base. The end of the video is the United States is cutting half of their mission control. Oh, and destroying the International Space Station. Oh my God, dude. Ooh, that hurts. That hurts. God damn, that hurts. We are witnessing a rare historical moment, a superpower cannibalizing itself, gutting its higher education system, sacrificing key strategic interests, and weakening its long-term strength, all to silence criticism of a distant protectorate. Truly insane. I am considering taking $3 billion of grant money away from a very anti-Semitic Harvard and giving it to trade schools all across our land. What a great investment that it would be for the USA, and so badly needed. Wow. He's so fucking stupid. Oh. All right. Kyle Kulinski reacted to both of these things. It's so refreshing to see how the anti-Hassan attacks failed so utterly among normie liberals and leftists. and how the like, I'm going to work with the Trump administration, Destiny and Ethan Klein's strategy to attack Hasan is just making more liberals like Hasan and mainstreaming Hasan more.
In the world of online politics that I wanted to talk to you guys about. One of them is that Hasan Piker got a day-long suspension on Twitch. We'll discuss why in a second. And Ken Klippenstein was visited by the FBI. So let's start here with Hasan. The Independent says, Hasan Piker suspended from Twitch after discussing alleged manifesto behind Israeli embassy staff shooting. Left-wing streamer was suspended for improper handling of terrorist propaganda, the platform said. Hasan Piker, a popular left-wing political streamer, has been suspended from the live streaming platform Twitch for the improper handling of terrorist propaganda. 24-hour suspension notice from the platform to the 33-year-old streamer followed his remarks regarding the shooting deaths of 2 Israeli embassy staffers in Washington, D.C. on Wednesday evening. While the notice didn't point to specific comments made by Piker, inappropriate behavior could include showing a violent extremist manifesto on stream while denouncing it and speaking out against terrorist organizations while displaying a recruitment video, according to Twitch. Hasan has 2.8 million followers on the platform. Quote, I covered the motives of the Israeli embassy staff shooter. Twitch terms of service dictates a suspension for even critical examination of the manifesto. Referring to the written comments allegedly made by Elias Rodriguez, the suspected shooter, quote, I believe this is a bad policy for news and press freedom. I'll take the suspension, but hope Twitch changes this policy in the future. Rodriguez has been charged with federal and local murder offenses in connection with the deaths of Yaron Leshinsky, 30 years old, and Sarah Milgram, 26. The couple left an event at the Capitol Jewish Museum and were gunned down. Leshinsky was hoping to propose to Milgram during an upcoming trip to Israel. During a live stream after the murders, Piker said, quote, I'm not saying it is a false flag incident at all. I'm not saying that. I think this is just one dude who is genuine in his actions and maybe a little brain broken. A flood of social media users denounced Piker's comments. In one X post, a user wrote, you called it a false flag, you hate the Jewish people, and you are anti-Semitic.
Like, chat, I want you to start laughing at these rad libs and these fake, like, that's the only reaction. The only reaction is to laugh at these people. When somebody says, Mike's racist, Mike's a class reductionist, Mike's anti-Semitic, Hasan's a class reductionist, Hasan's a China glazer, Hasan's an anti-Semitic. The only thing to do is laugh at them. They're fucking stupid. Stop acting like they're saying something that needs to be reacted to. They're just, it doesn't work anymore. It doesn't work anymore. And honestly, it's a problem that people try to use it against left-wingers. It makes it a joke when somebody is actually racist, when somebody is actually a scumbag. Because it's been so overused by the right wing, now it doesn't matter when we actually highlight somebody really being genocidal and a maniac. And that's why they're doing it. So stop acting like Jeremy Corbyn is anti-Semitic is something that's real. Just shut the laugh at these fucking idiots. It's pathetic.
Ironically enough, I was showing his motive to dispel the rumors of a false flag, which is the reason for this suspension, but I don't think you're capable of critical thought, Piker wrote in response. The Independent emailed Twitch for comment. Earlier this month, Piker said he was grilled by U.S. Customs and Border Protection agents at Chicago O'Hare International Airport. Officials spent 2 hours questioning him about his views on Donald Trump and the war in Gaza, prompting concern from civil liberties advocates. Now, by the way, the head of the ADL went on, I believe it was CNN, after this shooting and basically said, like, oh, you had the New York Times running this puff piece on this terrorist supporter, Hasan Piker, something to that effect. And I think that the fact that he was in the crosshairs of the ADL because of his open support for Palestinians, I think that may have weighed into this. Because, by the way, it's a total bullshit here from Twitch because, and there was this picture floating around on social media as well of the number of times Hasan reacted to a mass shooting or a terror attack where the person had a manifesto, and virtually every time he shows the manifesto and breaks it down critically. He did it with like 4 or 5 different other mass shooting manifestos. It's not like a new thing. And by the way, he also condemned the act and tried to discuss it in as objective a way as possible and try to break down the events in as objective a way as possible. I mean, basically doing like, this is like this goes beyond just political pundit, political commentator stuff. He actually handled the situation more like a journalist, where he went through the actual manifesto. Like me and Crystal just like talked about it. We just talked about the shooting. I didn't like pull up the manifesto, go through it line by line, and he took the time to pull up the manifesto as he's done with other shootings and gone through it.
That's what they don't want you to do, though. They want to gatekeep information from the general public. They don't want people to actually reflect on what's happening and question whether or not what the policies of the United States make sense. Like that's the reality. And when we say they, it's not very complicated. We're talking about the elite of American society, which refers to our political class, and the NACSEC blob, which is basically the people that determine that the United States should support Israel no matter what crimes they commit. Now, a sober, rational examination of that policy will have you realize that we shouldn't be doing that, and we should be reining in Benjamin Netanyahu, and we should be reinforcing international law. Hey, Dennis, how you doing, buddy? Bob Grattan.
Line for line, condemned it and tried to break it down. So this is all, like, this is much ado about nothing.
Jake Tapper hates Hassan because Jake Tapper is a Zionist. Like, it's not complicated.
But my conspiracy is that I think the fact that the head of the ADL was targeting him on CNN, that may have added some degree of pressure to the higher-ups at Twitch, where they felt like, you know, we just need the thinnest excuse, thinnest veneer possible in order to suspend Hassan. Now, it was just for a day, which I'm happy it was just a day. But even that is like, really, do you want to lay the precedent of every time there's a mass shooting or a terror attack, you're not allowed to talk about the manifestos? You're not allowed to look...
Yes, because they're stupid. They're fucking stupid. They are stupid at Twitch. They are stupid and worthless. I like, legitimately, they are stupid and worthless, and it is what it is. It is what it is. Like, they have created this culture where now YouTube creators make money talking about Twitch's TOS for content that exists all over YouTube that they don't talk. So you never see a YouTuber talking about enforcing YouTube TOS on other YouTubers. But somehow it is a way of getting people, like, people talk about Twitch's TOS as if it's some sort of something different. It's a fucking video website. Shut the fuck up. And Twitch caters to these fucking losers because they get 1,000 like tweets or 1,000 upvoted things on LSF, and they make policy based off of it. Stop rewarding that behavior. Start banning people for constantly whining about shit that you've clarified. Like, do something to stop this fucking network of bullshit. It's very annoying, and it holds Twitch back significantly. I don't want Asmongold to be the person who represents Twitch. I want someone like Vanilla Mace or iShowSpeed. I want regular human beings and creators to bring in people that are not part of Twitch. The Gamer Bro Incel Trainwreck XQC Asmongold community, they have nowhere else to go. They're baked in. What are they going to do? Go over to Kick, which is paying all their money to Twitch anyway? Who gives a fuck? Stop catering to these scumbags. It's fucking stupid.
Look into the motive. You're not allowed to have open conversations on these platforms. The whole idea of these platforms originally was that you can have open, frank discussions that maybe they don't have in mainstream news. So he didn't do anything wrong here, but now we're talking about, like they pointed out in the article, he was questioned by ICE when he returned from a trip overseas where they started inquiring about his politics, inquiring about his thoughts on Donald Trump, inquiring about his coverage of Gaza and his interview with the people that they say is a Houthi and others say is definitely not a Houthi, the Timothée Chalamet guy, if you guys remember, who that guy was. He was like this young guy who kind of looked like Timothée Chalamet, but some people said he was a Houthi, some people didn't, but Hassan interviewed the guy. So, like, they're looking at somebody who's critical of the United States of America, critical of this regime, and they put him through hell at the airport, which I've been saying since then, he should be thanking his lucky stars. They didn't just fucking disappear him, because as you all know, they're black-bagging Palestinian supporters all across this country, right? And then now we get this as well. Where he's suspended for, like, the most basic shit. Me and Crystal talked about the same shooting. And by the way, he sounds like he completely came out and definitively said he doesn't think this is a false flag attack. One of the things me and Crystal talked about is I kind of thought maybe it is. Now, I don't know.
No, it's not a false flag attack. It's not a false flag attack. This is not an Israeli agent. What we said is it is going to be used by Israelis to reframe the conversation around it, and it wasn't effective in disabling or sabotaging the Israeli state. It was not a very smart thing to do. That being said, we understand why it's happening, because violence is, the inevitable result when peaceful protest can't work. And right now, the vast majority of Americans want a change in the policy that we have toward Israel, and our political class is ignoring that and suppressing the people calling for it.
I don't have any evidence for that. We're just speculating. We're just having a conversation. But there is a long documented track record of Israel doing these sorts of things. It's not like it's totally unheard of and it would be something that there's no precedent for. There's a massive precedent for it. It's happened multiple times that Israel's done it. Now, does that mean in this case for sure it is? No, I don't know the reality. But to say you're not allowed to talk about it, like we went further than he did. And somehow, I guess Twitch is a lot more strict with their terms than YouTube is. That's my guess, is that that they have stricter rules over at Twitch. But again, either way, it was selectively enforced, because when Hassan talked about other mass shootings and other terrorist attacks and put the manifestos up and critically analyzed them, there was never a problem before. And this time there was a problem. And again, I think part of that is he's in the crosshairs of the ADL. I really think that that's part of the problem here. So now let's talk about Klippenstein. So Ken Klippenstein was visited by the FBI. He says, for the second time in a year, the FBI came to my home yesterday after I published the so-called manifesto of the man charged with killing 2 Israeli embassy staffers in Washington. By the way, that's the connecting tissue here too. Hassan gets suspended for talking about this manifesto, and Ken Klippenstein got visited by the FBI for publishing this manifesto. The visit didn't surprise me, but its tone did. It was aggressive and threatening. Quote, "You're not in trouble," the 2 special agents kept saying, good cop style, to get me to answer the questions they would later ask. Where had I gotten the manifesto? Had I had pre-knowledge of the attack? Did I receive instructions about how to disseminate the statement? Not a single mainstream media outlet has published the text because, as they claim, the FBI hasn't confirmed its authenticity. But the real reason is simple. The media just doesn't want to publish it, and the FBI doesn't want the media to think it can. Quote, "You're not in trouble," they said a few more times. "I know," I replied, wondering what else I could say to get them to go away. Shutting the door in their faces did not seem wise. Maybe I could demonstrate that I know enough about the FBI that their elicitation techniques wouldn't work, I thought. "You guys from the satellite office in Middleton?" I asked them, alluding to one of their many but little-known resident agencies distinct from the field offices, Wisconsin's being in Milwaukee. "Have you been there?" the man asked, looking surprised. "No, that's where the last visit came from," I explained, smiling. "The Bureau paid me a visit last year about my publication of the J.D. Vance dossier." I remember that. This also seemed to throw them off. "They were sent by Washington," they said, perhaps trying to distance themselves from the intrusion. Then came the big ask. "We want to know about the timeline, how you knew about the manifesto before anyone else, and if you were in touch with the shooter beforehand." I once again referred them to my attorney, and finally they left. But that wasn't the last I'd hear from them. They left my lawyer, Beth Burden, a career public defender who goes toe-to-toe with cops every day for her job, a voicemail, which I've enclosed below.
Hi, Beth. My name is Ellen Thurmer. I'm a special agent with the FBI Milwaukee Division out of the Madison RA. I'm calling in regards to your client, Ken Klippenstein. I was just over at Mr. Klippenstein's residence earlier today, following up on some questions regarding the manifesto that he published on his blog yesterday. Mr. Klippenstein recommended that we give you a call or email in order to consult with you prior to an interview or in conjunction with you. He was not comfortable speaking to us without your guidance. Again, my name is Ellen Thurmer. I'm with FBI Milwaukee, the Madison RA. I can be reached here at my cell phone. I'll also try to follow up with you via email. Thank you. Bye.
So it continues. As Beth explained to me, a special agent, Ellen P. Thurmer, one of the 2 that visited me, told her that they wanted to know why I'd published the manifesto, among other questions. Beth called them back after some back and forth. The special agent offered to send their questions in an email, trying to convince me to submit to an interview as part of their investigation. The purpose of this interview is to glean as much information regarding the manifesto and how it came into Mr. Klippenstein's possession as possible. We would appreciate it if this list of questions was kept between you and your client, the email read. So much for that. These are the 11 questions from the email I've reproduced.
By the way, so chat, what is happening here? This is basically the FBI is America's Gestapo or America's political police, if that makes you uncomfortable. All right. So the FBI spends most of their time trying to contain American politics within a sort of right-wing framework. And so anytime somebody brings truthful information out of the public interest that runs counter to the interests of the status quo, the FBI will try to find some way that they could prosecute you. They will start to look at everything you do. They will microscopically examine every little thing you do in order to try and silence you without just repressing you openly for the content of what you're saying, because they want to give the appearance that we have free speech, right? So this is part of the prosecutorial and investigatory malpractice that is deployed against dissidents in this country. And there's a million examples of this.
Below. When did he first encounter the manifesto? How did he first encounter the manifesto? Did he receive any instruction from the source of the manifesto about how to disseminate it? Does the system or platform from which he received the manifesto capture metadata concerning the transfer of the manifesto? Did he make any edits or changes to the manifesto? Was this his first and only interaction with whomever submitted the manifesto? Has anyone else submitted any other documentation regarding this incident? Did his receipt of the manifesto predate the attack? Where else, if anywhere, did he disseminate the manifesto? Does he have any knowledge of where else the manifesto was published or shared? Why does he think he was the one who received the manifesto? Other than the questions implying the FBI is entertaining an outlandish theory that I conspire with the shooter, the others seem pretty straightforward and routine. But there's a Trump administration dimension to all of this. The administration has many times publicly warned about shadowy, unseen forces that it believes are bankrolling everything from Tesla vandalism to the college protests. That tone from the top, labeling seemingly everything terrorism, tells personnel that the gloves are off and more aggressive work in the field is now permissible. Get ready to hear that I'm impeding the investigation, giving people a roadmap to the sources and methods that are used to catch terrorists, or whatever reason the National Security State Soundboard offers up for why the public isn't allowed to know things. Let's see if this gets me another visit. So here's the reality of the situation, which everybody should be clear about. The reason Ken Klippenstein released this is because he's a journalist. The reason why every media outlet in America should release it is because they're supposed to be journalists. They're supposed to be reporters. They're supposed to be in the news and information business, right? My guess is the reason he was able to get his hands on it is because he has a track record of releasing stuff like this, because that's his fucking job. There's a reason why his Substack is incredibly popular. There's a reason why a lot of people have subscribed to his Substack.
By the way, chat, we had Ken Klippenstein on my show at the very beginning. At the very beginning of his starting his thing, he was on this show. Because Mike not only was right, Mike is right first. Okay? Not only was I right, I was right first. The first to be right. Mike leads the way.
Because they know.
You could say he's in the vanguard.
He's going to do what used to be, this is old school, basic ass journalism. We have information. It's for the public good. We're going to release it. Now, and this is his deeper point, you have all these mainstream media outlets. They don't want to release it. They wouldn't release it because they have a chummy relationship with the FBI, and they know that the FBI doesn't want them to release it, so they didn't. So really, it's like the mainstream media outlets are working for the intelligence agencies. They're working for the deep state. They're working for powerful forces. Because if they're willing to pull their punches and not do their job to appease the FBI, why wouldn't they do it with the CIA? Why wouldn't they do it with the executive branch? Why wouldn't they do it with the legislative branch? Why wouldn't they do it for billionaires and moneyed interests who oftentimes fund their papers and fund their TV stations? Why wouldn't they do it for multinational corporations who give them advertiser dollars? Oftentimes, mainstream media is simply just controlled by powerful interests, and they shape the world in a way to make you not look at what's actually going on, right? And so I'm sure either the guy directly sent it to Ken, right? Or he somehow got it from somebody who knew the guy or whatever the fuck. But the implication that maybe he was involved, he's a fucking journalist. He's got a track record of releasing stuff like this whenever he can get his fucking hands on the JD.
Yeah, the idea that, oh, you released the manifesto, you're a terrorist. is how they could justify censoring you from knowing what happened. By the way, we're supposed to be in a democracy where the people rule, but yet the people are supposed to make political decisions while not knowing what's going on. If somebody controls everything you know, they're in control of you.
Fans dossier, right? Like, this is what he does. But his point about the Trump regime stands that they're being more aggressive. They're being more aggressive. And I don't think that's going to stop. And that's why you see Hassan Piker get questioned at the airport over his politics. That's why you see the second FBI visit for Ken Klippenstein. They really do want journalism to be a crime. They really do. And this is where it leads us. By the way, I got one more thing for you here. So this is a comedian. I forget her fucking name. I've seen her before, but I'm blanking on what her name is. But she actually makes an interesting and good point here. Let's watch.
I had a friend, Jenna Friedman, who just posted on Instagram, comedian, that she was performing in Vancouver, and when she came back to America, in customs asked, "What do you do?" She said she's a comedian. They said, do you talk about politics in your set, and do you make fun of the president? And she said she answered truthfully, which I think is yes for her. And they didn't take her. They let her go, but they asked. Right. They asked, and that just is. I mean, I'm not trying to be an alarmist, but I definitely don't think that I am immune to having some kind of backlash, or that I couldn't be put on some kind of list because of some story I reposted that was. I mean, you look at other places that have dictators.
So now you have comedians being aggressively questioned when they come in the country about their politics. Political commentators and pundits, same thing. Journalists being visited by the FBI. And that's to say nothing about the multiple lawsuits the Trump regime has against media outlets because they're trying to shake them down and scare them into not critically reporting on Donald Trump. They also know that Trump holds the keys to their various mergers. So you got the CEOs and the owners of the company saying, hey, lay off Trump. It's not good for business. You have a chilling effect all across the board. Never mind the pro-Palestine activists who are being black-bagged, Mahmoud Khalil locked up indefinitely because he dared to protest Israel, Rumeysa Ozturk, who was locked up for a long time for daring to protest Israel, others as well.
I mean, Mahmoud Khalil, what's the justification for that at this point? There is none. There's no evidence of anything. What the fuck is going on? He's a legal permanent resident. What's going on? What's taking so long?
It's a chilling effect. They don't want free speech. They don't want honesty and openness and a free flow of information. They want to control all of it. So it's a terrifying time, and I expect this sort of stuff to only get worse the deeper we get in this regime. Hey y'all, do me a favor and like and subscribe. It helps out big time in the algorithm. Click the bell as well for notifications when videos drop, and watch that video on screen right now. You know you want to.
Yeah. The genocide is entering the death camp phase, concentration camp phase. Israel IDF helicopters opened fire that employees of the American company withdrew after the crowd attacked the humanitarian equipment. This is the death camp infrastructure that is being built. But Ken is not afraid. I fucking love Ken. Ken posted 2 hilarious videos showing how the media is a propaganda machine. Look at this shit.
Women, I think, bring a perspective to the FBI that is different than our male counterparts, and we need to reflect the community we're serving.
Not sec feminism, dictatorship feminism. Hell yeah! Women can also discredit dissidents. Women can also stalk journalists.
And
Slay.
If approximately 50% of the country is women, then we should have equal representation.
And while she never doubted herself in being a great special agent, Special Agent Thurmer credits the women who came before her to help her see her full potential.
I was lucky that I worked with many female special agents in my capacity as professional staff. Women, I think, bring a perspective to the FBI that is different than our male counterparts, and we need to reflect the community we're serving. And if approximately 50% of the country is women, then we should have equal representation.
And while she never doubted herself in being a great special agent, Special Agent Thurmer credits the women who came before her to help her see her full potential.
I was lucky that I worked with many female special agents in my capacity as professional staff. Women, I think, bring a...
Oh, sorry, chat. This is the one I wanted to show you. The next one is repeater.
If you think a woman isn't man enough to work in the FBI, Special Agent Ellen Thumer is here to prove you wrong.
Can you believe that you're here? No. And I think that's why I originally didn't think to apply.
Fire! And speaking of women in the FBI, there's also Janine DiGiuseppe, the special agent in charge for the Albany office.
For me, it's very humbling, and I never thought I'd be an SAC.
They and Supervisory Special Agent Donald Chu know what it takes to join the ranks of one of the most respected federal organizations. Fire! But as minorities, they also know they represent much more than just the agency.
It's important for the FBI to reflect the communities we serve.
Sometimes when we go into a community and we want to interview a witness or speak to a victim of a crime, that victim or witness may be reluctant to talk to someone that they feel isn't like them or represent them.
I do feel like...
Chat, these people are not on your side. There's a very famous, venerable piece of hip hop. Let me see if I can find it.
Right about now, NWA court is in full effect. Judge Gray residing. In the case of...
Hold on. I'm trying to find the lyric. Hold on. Here it is. Don't let it be... NWA explained the phenomenon quite well, which is these people are there to serve the interest of the white supremacist state.
Like, I work with some really amazing women.
I love Ken making her famous. Oh, no, that's not a better song. You're fucking insane. That's not even funny. Okay. Okay. All right. The soy right. Balding over Hassan. Honestly, we need to... I feel like the soy right is such a good example of how we should discuss this topic.
The soy right, dude. Holy fuck. Bunch of pathetic crybabies. Oh my lord, dude. Unfucking bearable. Constantly advocating for more death and more destruction, more harm to others that have less than them, and then immediately going, oh, you're being mean to me. You're being so mean. What did I do other than advocate for an insane process of just like randomly grabbing people off the fucking street? The soy right, dude.
That's what it really is about. James Baldwin's quote here is really the reality that we live in. And it's not to say that white cops are racist or worse. They are. But the idea that diversity alone is going to result, or just representation alone is going to solve the problems with these structures is provably false. There are plenty of people that will sell you out to advance themselves. And liberal representationism will fail. And that's why I don't support someone just because they're younger or just because they're a millennial. I want to know what their politics are. I'll support the biggest boomer of boomers if he's a left-winger. And I will despise a millennial if he is a right-winger or a centrist.
The Democratic Party is still figuring out how to meet this moment. And we spoke to 3 Democrats, all launching first-time bids for national office in 2026, about what they think their party needs to do to win.
I'm Mallory McMorrow. I'm from Royal Oak, Michigan, and I'm running for United States Senate.
My name is Jake Rakove. I live in Studio City, and I'm running for the 32nd Congressional District in California.
I'm Caleb Ghazale. I'm from Chicago, and I'm running for Congress in the 9th District of Illinois.
It is not enough to say Democrats are not in power right now, but just vote for us hard enough in the midterms. People want to see that you feel what they're feeling, that you feel the fear and anxiety and frustration and anger.
Every single authoritarian movement thrives when the opposition party refuses to actually stand up to them. Anyone that's taken a middle school history class knows that appeasement isn't effective.
My opponent, Brad Sherman, has been in office for almost 30 years. He's in his 15th term. He was elected in 1996 when I was 8 years old. I think people who have been in power for that long and have so checked out of the district as he has is why we got Trump twice. And so I'm running against him to bring a new generation to Congress to actually show those people who left our party that we are still a party of progress and still a party that's going to work for them.
A lot of Congress didn't grow up with school shooting drills. They don't worry about out-of-pocket expenses. They probably own their homes. And that's not the case for most of Gen Z.
The idea that you can't afford to buy a house, that you don't have job security, that you may not have health care, that you may not be able to afford the things that came easier to our parents is a reality for me. That means that I respond very differently than perhaps some members of my party who have been in office for many more years, who have come up in a very different time.
And if the strategy is to stand back, hands off till 2026 and hope enough people get hurt that they'll vote Democrat in the midterms, that's not only morally repugnant, you're banking on people being hurt by this administration, but it's also stupid because you're letting Trump dismantle this country.
You have to understand something. Centrist Democrats agree with what Trump is doing. You understand this. They're just too cowardly to do it, okay? They're cowardly, but they agree with it, all right? Benjamin Netanyahu is getting the same shit from Chuck Schumer as he is from Donald Trump. They agree. See, the problem is you are blaming Trump for it when it's actually the Democrats as well, which is the crisis we're in. You are confused. Now, some Democrats oppose it, but they're the minority of politicians in office.
We all knew he was going to be chaotic. He was going to be unstable. He was going to do power grabs. And to see how slowly they were to respond in the first few months, I think upset a lot of our base and a lot of other Democratic voters who looked around and said, what are you doing? Do something, do anything.
This is about approach. Are you somebody who fights or are you somebody who sits back? Are you active or are you passive? Do you have the ability to break through, meet people where they are, and talk to people in a real human way? And that is my lane. I know how to break through. I know how to communicate with people.
We have to have these conversations in our safest districts. We have to be able to fight amongst ourselves and have this discussion as Democrats where we know we're going to talk to our base and be strongest before we can even go into a swing district and hope of converting people and bringing back in people into the party that left us.
Democrats need to stop reacting to Republicans and just get back to basic humanity. We should all be agreeing, both parties, that the baseline is housing, groceries, and healthcare with money left over. It's just common sense that in the richest country in the world, in what many consider the greatest country in the world, that we should be taking care of our citizens.
What can you even say?
Housing. An economy that includes all of us. My name might be different, but our fight is one and the same. And it's as American as it gets. I'm Dr. Abdul Al-Sayed, and I'm running for U.S. Senate. Let's go.
And all like that is a candidate, but there, he's not going to get pushed by mainstream media.
Did not go the way of not fascism. I think the postmortems I'm in favor of.
Does he support Medicare for all? He wrote a book on it. He's one of the country's leading Medicare for all advocates. He's the guy who's writing what Medicare for all would mean.
I think we should never stop learning the lessons of what happens when you run centrist Democrats without a strong vision and who do not speak to the realities of Americans and talk about things like economic economies or economic the opportunity economy, versus just saying things like Medicare for all or, universal basic income or, massive limits on rent gouging and price gouging and all this. But one of those lessons for me, as we are in a week where Israel has absolutely ramped up its attacks on Gaza, and not only that, but is openly saying this is their final solution. We know that 80% of buildings in Gaza have been destroyed. And just over the last few days, you're talking 600 people killed, mostly refugee camps. We're looking at, I think the UN just this morning said 14,000 children, babies are at risk of dying in the next 48 hours. if aid doesn't enter, Israel's promised to allow a little bit of aid in, that aid is not reaching people. So it's one thing to say it, it's another thing to receive it, it's another thing to survive. And that is not actually what the Israeli government wants, and largely because no restraint was put from the American government onto the Israeli government. It has not happened, obviously, under Trump, and it sure as shit did not happen under Biden. And really being honest about that, and how that contributed to so many ostensible Democrats staying home, feeling like their issues didn't matter, feeling like they tried, that they, cried out, they made calls, they took the streets and were reprimanded and called, petulant or anti-Semitic at worst, for standing up for the people of Gaza. I mean, that really all should factor into any Democratic Party that's worth its salt, that wants to move forward in this time. And yet, one of the main organizers of the uncommitted movement, Walid Shahid, had a back and forth with Amr Moussa, who is the former director of the Kamala Harris Rapid Response Team, worked on her campaign, was a former speechwriter for Joe Biden. He's steeped. He's a young guy, steeped in the Democratic Party. This is one of them, Democratic consultants, kind of Democratic operatives. That is this person. And upon news, Trump is trying to relocate 1 million Palestinians from Gaza to Libya. Amr tweeted, CC the uncommitted movement. Now, if you can't read between the lines, this is what we've been seeing from a lot of, blue MAGA libs, which is let's blame the people who had a problem with voting for someone who was greenlighting genocide and supplying the weapons to do said genocide. Let's blame them rather than my candidate who refused to budge after months, after the international outcry, after all kinds of human rights bodies said what they said about what was happening, the ICJ cases against Israel, the arrest warrants for Netanyahu and Gallant, that no. It's these pesky little lefties who can't see past the dead babies. That's who we're going to blame. And Walid responded, which I think is a very perfect response, saying there's a genre of Democratic operative who spent the last year gaslighting the public and covering up Biden's decline, who now only invoke Palestinians not to mourn them, but to mock them. It's cynical hackery at its worst, divisive and self-sabotaging at a moment when we should be earning back the trust of voters. This party pushed away. If we're serious about stopping MAGA, like showing up late to a funeral just to shame the mourners for crying. That is beautifully said. And then, of course, Amr Moussa has to respond. There's a genre of Dem operative who cares more about clout chasing than winning elections. Walid led a campaign to persuade voters Kamala Harris would have treated Palestine the same as Trump. He knew that was a lie, but he couldn't stop because it damaged his business. Okay,
I think one of the things that you should notice when you see somebody posting like this is they're a stan. They actually don't have any thoughts. They're a stan. They have some sort of uncomfortable parasocial connection to a candidate, and they're just rationalizing their opinion. Kamala Harris and Joe Biden are the exact same on Israel. How do I know that? Because Democrats today are not doing anything to oppose Trump on Israel. Do you understand that? Kamala Harris is a free woman. She could say stuff in the media if she disagreed. She does not disagree. You're inventing things because you are a liar. Stop it. And stop being a fan of Kamala Harris. She's not worthy of it. You fucking pathetic loser. And when she was asked directly, point blank, she said she would do nothing differently. That was her decision. And so she reaped the whirlwind.
There's three fallacies in that, but the idea that Walid is clout chasing, okay, whatever, my guy, yes, anyone who works on primarying Democrats must be chasing clout. Because that's a total winning strategy. Every single time it works.
Yeah.
Hell yeah. Every time you push Dems from the left, you always win. The idea, number one, that the uncommitted movement said that Trump was going to be the same as Kamala Harris is a blatant lie. Walid then points that out, citing a New York Times article, which says that the uncommitted movement knew that Kamala Harris, there was more opportunity. She would be an improvement for Biden from Biden's severe lack of empathy, said Waleed at the time. An improvement, not only from Biden, but obviously from Trump as well. But like the last part about that they care about clout chasing rather than winning elections is just wild to me, because the uncommitted movement, I think for those of you who might follow me, for those of you who disagreed with me about supporting Kamala Harris as a lesser of two evils, I think you know that some of these last ditch efforts to bring disaffected people back into the political process, like the uncommitted movement, was the only thing that was engaging voters in 2024. And that, along with efforts like Swap My Vote, if you guys remember that, which was people in safe blue states swapping their vote with people in swing states, so that the person in the blue state would vote for Kamala Harris, or no, would vote for a third party, while the person in that swing state that was more at risk would vote for Kamala, even though they were morally against it. If you guys remember that, there were so many attempts, but the uncommitted movement was absolutely shunted. They didn't allow a single Palestinian or Arab or Muslim speaker on the DNC stage. And they were sidelined. Yeah, they met with them, but it was like, and then
they kicked Hassan out on the last day. And then she came up there and her speech was, we're going to have the most lethal military. Let's be honest.
Thanks. And on top of that, lastly, I think we all need to remember, Kamala Harris volunteers were directed when they received text messages or emails or calls about Gaza to write that wasn't about Gaza, that they had, that there was no response. They just weren't responding. So it was like nobody picked up the phone, nobody responded back. So Gaza was a non-issue in Kamala's eyes, even though her language was maybe one hair to the better of Joe Biden's. Felt like maybe there was a little bit more performative sympathy, but in practice, nothing. And so I am bitching about the callousness with which these Democratic operatives who are so close to actual power treat the entire base. And again, it's not just Gaza, folks. It's not just people who care about that issue. It is voters of color. It is voters who care about actually reining in the cops, like in 2020, a surge of momentum that got Biden elected in the first place. It is trans voters. It is women. It is all of us, all of the people who feel marginalized. It is working people, and to be so eager to blame voters rather than your own bullshit strategy. It's just like, it makes me lose hope in the Democratic Party. And we all know my hope in the Democratic Party and faith in it is at an all-time low. And what do you know? So are most Americans. We'll look at the polling a little bit later. So it's really disgusting. And if they don't learn to wise up, they're going to lose again and again. And it won't be because of people like me who are telling my audience, vote for the lesser of two evils as much as it pains you. No, but like, you can't fake it. You can't fake caring about people's issues when you're overseeing this kind of treatment and genocide and flaunting international law. You can't then say, oh, but Trump and norms and democracy and human rights. And no, because you don't abide by the same thing. You're such a hypocrite. That's on you. That's on you. And it's very disheartening.
What's going on, Parenti?
I mean, it's not disheartening if you actually didn't delude yourself into thinking that the Democratic Party was anything than what it is. I think the biggest problem we have right now is that a lot of left-wingers are in utter denial about the nature of the Democratic Party and what it believes and how it is organized and how it is structured. I can't personally believe that you don't know of that. Like, at this point, you have to be knowingly ignoring reality. I just found this out, but Gaza Freedom Flotilla is resolute at setting another ship on a mission to deliver aid from the 30th to the 1st of this month. Oh, hell yeah. The Democratic Party lied to you about Joe Biden. Now, this is some content. I'll be right back. Hold on.
That's what Kamala Harris's former campaign aide, David Plouffe, says in the new book, Original Sin, President Biden's Decline, Its Cover-Up, and His Disastrous Choice to Run Again. That's the much-hyped new book by CNN's Jake Tapper and Axios' Alex Thompson. Now, Plouffe appears to think that it was entirely Joe Biden's fault that Democrats lost the 2024 presidential election. In fact, he says, it's all Biden. We got so screwed by Biden. as a party. And plenty of top Democrats who are quoted in this book seem to think similarly. The original sin of the title of this book is Biden's decision to run for re-election, which many leading figures in the party are now willing to admit was a terrible decision. He stole an election from the Democratic Party, says one senior Democrat. He stole it from the American people. They call the decision an abomination. So Biden was clearly in no shape to serve a second term, at the end of which he would have been 86 years old, and the public actually understood this at the time. In 2022, a majority of Americans said that Biden lacked the mental sharpness to be president, and by 2023, 3/4 of Americans thought Biden was too old to run for re-election. Current Affairs noted earlier that year that only 7% of voters were enthusiastic about Biden running again. It was pretty obvious to anyone who looked that Biden was suffering at least some level of age-related cognitive decline. He'd always been rambly and often incoherent, but there were more and more concerning lapses, like forgetting the number of grandchildren he had, although in fairness, that was a little confusing since at the time the official Biden family number of grandchildren was lower than the actual number of grandchildren, or getting completely lost in the middle of his sentences.
Dealing with everything we have to do with, we finally beat Medicare.
The president became a national punchline. Biden forgets nation's name, ran a 2023 Onion headline. It was so obvious that Biden shouldn't have been running for re-election that this new book by Tapper and Thompson seems pretty superfluous, actually. Yes, we all knew that. We all saw it. And some of us were saying at the time that Biden had no business running for a second term. So the only real mystery left is why there were so many Democrats determined to, in Tapper and Thompson's words, pretend Biden wasn't mentally melting before our eyes, even though their denial ultimately had catastrophic consequences for the country. In fact, plenty of senior Democrats, we find out in the book, knew that the situation was far more concerning than the public even understood, and what was going on in private, they say, was even worse. Now, that's the opposite of the party line during Biden's presidency, which is that while he could be halting and incoherent in public, in private, he was sharp as a tack. And I mean, that was the party line. The New York Times said in 2023 that so many Biden advisors use the phrase sharp as a tack to describe him that it has become something of a mantra. Now, that never made too much sense, because why would he suddenly spring to life when the cameras were off? Nor did the explanation make sense that his fumbling was due to a childhood stutter that had not been noticeable for the first 4 decades of his political career. But Tapper and Thompson show that the public often saw a deceptively coherent Biden, thanks to the careful curation of his appearances. They could only be during certain hours of the day, avoiding unscripted moments, shortening speeches, editing videos, etc. One attempt at a 5-minute video of Biden had to be reduced to 2 minutes because much of the footage was unusable since the man could not speak. That's a quote. Biden had to script his own cabinet meetings, with staff asking cabinet secretaries to prepare questions beforehand so he could read the answers off notes during the meetings. Things were bad from the very beginning, according to one cabinet secretary. Since at least 2022, Biden had moments where he cannot recall the names of top aides whom he sees every day. He called National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan Steve, although, as Jon Stewart pointed out, Sullivan looks like he could easily be a Steve. There was apparently a limit to the hours in which Biden could reliably function, and an increasing number of moments where he seemed to freeze up, lose his train of thought, forget the names of top aides, or momentarily not remember friends he'd known for decades. He was, quote, meandering and incoherent. He would tell the same story multiple times, and even if you'd known him for years, he would, quote, look at you like he'd never seen you before. He would tell stories that supposedly took place in years where the people he mentioned, like former German Chancellor Helmut Kohl and former French President Francois Mitterrand, would have been long dead. In 2021, Biden went to Capitol Hill, apparently to rally congressional support for passing his infrastructure bill, but instead he gave an incomprehensible speech and then left without actually asking them to pass the bill, alarming Democratic members of Congress. Sometimes Biden's unpredictable remarks had major foreign policy consequences, as when he, seemingly off the cuff and to the alarm of his advisors, upturned decades of strategic ambiguity policy toward China by promising to defend Taiwan militarily.
Are you willing to get involved militarily to defend Taiwan if it comes to that?
Yes,
You are.
that's the commitment we made.
The White House then had to scramble to insist the policy hadn't actually changed and the president didn't mean what he said. Accommodations were made for Biden. He wore maximum stability sneakers with an extra wide sole so he wouldn't fall over. He started using the short stairs on Air Force One. Events were scheduled during the hours he could be relied on to function. The vocabulary shrank for speeches, and interviews with the press were limited. He gave 38 interviews over a time period in which Donald Trump had given 116. He couldn't even give a 10-minute speech at a fundraiser, according to Tapper, without using a teleprompter. Biden's team even brought in Steven Spielberg to try to improve the lighting and microphones for his videos, on the theory that that might have been the problem, but he had trouble taping even mundane video remarks without flubbing his lines. Videos were even put in cinematic slow motion, so it wasn't as obvious how slowly Biden actually walked. Nevertheless, in the words of Democratic Congressman Brian Higgins, his decline was, quote, evident to most people that watched him. And by December 2023, Biden couldn't even greet people at the White House Christmas party properly, where he seemed completely out of it. Now, the decline wasn't absolute. Like many older people, Biden had good days and he had bad days. He had good hours and he had bad hours. He could rally and surprise people, as he did with his feisty 2024 State of the Union address.
He wasn't even feisty. Am I the only one who watched it? He looked like shit. He looked like fucking shit. This is somebody from New Orleans, chat. This is the average person from New Orleans. If you want to know, like, what type of white is Nathan Robinson, the answer is a white man from Louisiana. There's two types of white men from Louisiana. We're talking about fan boat Cajun redneck or Andy. Andy who wears purple suits and dresses like a downscale pimp.
Tapper and Thompson say they reject the view that he was little more than a husk from the beginning of his presidency. But he was the president of the United States, where the expected standard of fitness is not just better than a husk. And cabinet secretaries in his own administration...
I'm sorry, sir. His suit is plum, not purple. You're right. You're right.
Said he could not be relied on to perform at 2 a.m. during...
Why do people believe the line that the Democratic Party was pro-Israeli because Genocide Joe, when Joe couldn't even string 3 words together? Is that a serious question, or are you trying to troll?
An emergency, which is famously a basic requirement of the job. In 2023 and 2024, the cabinet didn't even have access to Biden for months, as there was a deliberate strategy by the White House to have him meet with as few people as necessary. Now, one important takeaway of the book is that Biden's decline did not begin in 2023 or even 2024. In fact, Original Sin provides convincing evidence that Biden had no business being president in the first place. That itself is not exactly a new revelation from Tapper and Thompson. Observers like Glenn Greenwald were saying in 2020 that Biden's deterioration was visible to the naked eye, and even Cory Booker said there are definitely moments when you listen to Joe Biden and you just wonder.
I think there was a lot of moments where a number of us were looking at us on our stage when he tends to go on sometimes. At one point, he's talking about people in communities like mine listening to record players. I don't remember the last time I saw a record player in my
They're back in, you know.
They're back in. The vinyl is hot right now.
I just want to let you know.
Maybe he's cooler than I am, but there are definitely moments where you listen to Joe Biden and you just wonder. But I don't know. Look.
Senator, are you saying he's just too old to be president?
No, I'm definitely not saying that.
But according to Tapper and Thompson...
By the way, this was... In 2019, I was saying he was demented, and he was demented the entire fucking time.
And the first signs he was deteriorating came in 2015. After his son Beau Biden's death, parts of Biden's brain and mental capacity seemed to dissolve like someone poured hot water on them, according to a senior White House official at the time. In 2019, Biden forgot the name of Mike Donilon, perhaps his
closest friend,
closest confidant other than his wife, who had worked with Biden.
He forgot his best friend's name.
1981. During the 2020 campaign, Biden's behavior was often bizarre. That was the year that Biden infamously forgot the words to the Declaration of Independence, issuing his stirring alternative.
We hold these truths to be self-evident. All men and women created by you know the thing.
Tapper and Thompson write that voters were coming out of Biden's events less likely to support him than when they went in, and precinct captains disappeared or said no thanks after attending a Biden rally. When the campaign tried to produce some videos of Biden for the 2020 Democratic National Convention, those who saw the results said they were horrible, that Biden couldn't follow the conversation at all, and that it was, quote, like watching grandpa who shouldn't be driving. One of the Democrats involved in the film's production said, "I didn't think he could be president and felt angry upon realizing that, quote, they've been gaslighting us." The videos were edited down to a few minutes of footage in order to deceive the public. Now, the COVID-19 pandemic...
You have to understand that the reason why this was done is ideological. All right. The reason why they lied about Joe Biden and they concealed it is because they don't want progressive policy. Do you understand? Because the number 2 person was Bernie Sanders and he would have fucked their grift up. That's why. It's not because they like Joe. They hate Joe. They thought he was a joke. But they also worried that the only person who actually could beat Joe Biden is Bernie Sanders. And they were worried that he would fuck their grift up, their corporate grift, their corruption. And he would pass policies that would actually redistribute wealth from the wealthy to you. And so they fought tooth and nail for Joe. They lied about Joe. They're going to do the same shit for Pete Buttigieg. They're going to do the same shit for whichever ghoul they run against AOC. They hate you. They hate you. They hate you. Okay? The Democratic Party, the centrists, the establishment wants you to fucking die. And if you don't know that, you're delusional.
That year killed millions worldwide.
That is not very nice of them. Yeah, I know. It's really nice.
Thompson conclude it was one of the best things to happen to Biden's presidential hopes in 2020 because it allowed him to avoid the kinds of public appearances that would have revealed his weaknesses. He could avoid grueling travel and campaign remotely from his basement and use a teleprompter during interviews. Biden still, however, only just squeaked into office against a historically unpopular incumbent. In fact, as Tapper and Thompson note, the only reason Biden became the candidate at all in 2020 was that the Democratic establishment successfully rallied to stop Bernie Sanders in what Tapper says is the closest equivalent we've seen in our lifetimes to the legendary smoke-filled room of politics where the establishment get together behind closed doors to decide what's going to happen. Biden was the candidate of last resort for the establishment, Tapper and Thompson say, who were determined to avoid a Bernie Sanders nomination at all costs. So if we want to identify a true original sin, then, to find the starting point for the unfolding nightmare that has brought us to
your thoughtful scripted YouTube video on this topic seems pretty necessary. Honestly, I've been thinking a lot about this. If I was making some, like, what topics should we make YouTube videos about that you think would catch on? I need to like start laying down, taking some notes and producing some videos, high quality videos. Maybe I'll spend most of the time narrating, you know, in a Sean style.
They're not clippers, they're clizzers, man. Hey, who are you? I'm you, man. Come on, it's me, Joey B. How'd you get in here? This is a security breach. Look, I got a surprise for you. Your name isn't Barack Biden. It's Barack O'Jiden. Who said?
Okay, we get it.
Trump term, it's not Biden's delusional belief that he could serve a second term. Rather, it was the party elite's conclusion in 2020 that they'd rather prop up an incompetent, deteriorating Joe Biden than support the most popular politician in America, Bernie Sanders, because Bernie's social democratic agenda posed an economic threat to the donor class. Now, the late Senator Mike Gravel, or more precisely, the teenagers that he entrusted to be his voice on Twitter, presciently warned in 2019 that if Democrats nominate Joe Biden, he may win and will have 4 years of weak, feckless Democratic leadership, and then in 4 years, he'll be defeated by a Republican Party even more openly white nationalist. If you nominate an Obama redux, you'll get a worse Trump redux. And so here we are with our worst Trump redux. But is it all, as David Plouffe alleges, all Biden? As critical as I've been...
It's just Joe, guys. It's just Joe. By the way, notice the centrist Democrats try to make everything about personalities. They try to make everything about personalities. It's just Donald Trump. It's just Joe Biden. Incredible.
Of the man, and you can watch my very long YouTube video from 2019, 2020, going through everything that's bad about Joe Biden. I still don't think that's quite fair to him to say it's all Biden. Biden was vain, selfish, and delusional, for sure. He was also morally heinous, supporting Israel and its campaign of destruction against Gaza, and pretending all the while to be trying to end the violence when he wasn't. But plenty of other people bear substantial responsibility for getting us to the awful position that we are currently in. In fact, Original Sin seems to be partly an opportunity for high-ranking Democrats to absolve themselves of any blame by shifting it onto Joe Biden now that he is weak and powerless, and although they didn't know this when they gave their quotes to the book, stricken with advanced prostate cancer. The Harris campaign itself has plenty to answer for. It squandered a ton of money, and Harris made disastrous blunders, including refusing to break with Biden on Gaza. But if the story of the election is that Biden simply fucked the Democrats so that it was impossible for them to win, nobody needs to be on the hook for these mistakes. Tapper and Thompson recite the old saying that victory has 100 fathers and defeat is an orphan. And that does seem appropriate. There's little evidence in the book that top Democrats are introspecting or taking any responsibility for their own role.
They never will. They never will. I want you to understand this. They never will. They have to be dug out of their holes. It's like a Japanese soldier that didn't hear that the Empire of Japan surrendered, and he's in his bunker, and he's surrounded by 1 million booby traps. The only way to get him out is to either dump a gallon of napalm in every single opening, or to get his commanding officer to show up 20 years later and order him to stand down. They're not gonna give up, okay? They'll never, ever, ever do anything differently until we rip them out of office. And honestly, the easiest way is to just give up on the Democratic Party and start a Labor Party, or start a Progressive Party, or start a Socialist Party, or whatever you want to call it. We have to start a working class party, and it has to be built with only people that stick to a progressive platform and say fuck you to the Democrats. Why won't Bernie do it? Because he's old. He's old. And it's a mistake. He should have done it 10 years ago. People were calling him old 10 years ago. If he had done it 10 years ago, we'd be in power now. They're never going to change. Why would they change? What incentive is there to change? Why would they change? What's the mechanism by which they would change? What? They moralistically feel bad about taking your money? Like, what is wrong with you? It's like, wow, I can't believe this Ponzi scheme guy is not feeling bad about his Ponzi scheme and refunding all the money. They're the ones benefiting from the scam. Why would they stop? You're giving them billions of dollars every year. Like, what do you mean?
In taking us toward 2024's horrific outcome. Some of the Democratic insiders that Tapper and Thompson quote were actively lying about Biden during the period where speaking out about his condition might actually have made a difference. The strategist who lambasted Biden for stealing an election turns out to have been someone who publicly defended Biden during the campaign. Of course, we don't actually know who these people really are because Tapper and Thompson quote many of their sources anonymously. They report speaking to 4 different Biden cabinet secretaries, but apparently none of them were willing to go on the record under their real names, perhaps because it would reveal just how much they'd covered for Biden during his presidency. Now, in the story of the emperor's new clothes, it's not the emperor, but the crowd that ensures the survival of the lie. So much of the blame here clearly belongs to the coterie of sycophants who insisted Biden was fine, when, in the words of a top Democrat, he was clearly not fucking fine. That Democrat, nevertheless, publicly defended the president every day. Insiders saw things that shocked them, but said nothing. One donor explained that no one wanted to be on the outside in case Biden did win, and they didn't speak publicly because doing so would make them pariahs, as happened to Dean Phillips, a congressman who was warned by House Democrats that his choice to challenge Biden in the primary had killed a once promising political career. Now, the rationalizations people made were laughable. One Biden aide reasoned that Biden just had to win and then he could disappear for 4 years. He'd only have to show proof of life every once in a while. I mean, yes, that might work to win.
The complete dream of a totally corrupt party. The complete dream of full-on naked corruption is to have an empty throne. Unbelievable.
Re-election, but the point of politics is surely not just to keep Joe Biden in office for as long as possible, but to govern, which requires something more than showing proof of life every once in a while. Sometimes,
if you want my argument for why voting Democrat is useless, California. The Republican Party is basically non-competitive in the state of California. It's the 5th largest economy in the world. Are they fixing any of the problems? Have they fixed the problems? Do they have a good quality transit? Do they have social and public housing? Do they have high-speed rail? Have they become completely green in their energy? Have they solved income inequality? Some of the worst homelessness in the country, most unaffordable housing, most rent-burdened people. It is, without a doubt, a basket case. So how many more Democrats do we need to have? 100%? Like, what level before they actually perform?
It was hard for Biden to even do that, though, with those who saw him saying it could be, quote, like watching someone who was not alive, and that he was so withered that touching him was, quote, like touching Mr. Burns from The Simpsons. Internally, people were thinking things like, quote, this is crazy, crazy. At one point, donor Ari Emanuel screamed, what the fuck are we doing? At a Biden deputy. But no organized effort to oust Biden was made till after his infamous June 2024 debate meltdown, the one in which he bragged about beating Medicare. For some, of course, keeping Joe Biden in office was the point of politics. When I spoke to Cenk Uygur of the Young Turks in a July 2024 interview on this channel, who, like Dean Phillips, ran a long-shot presidential campaign to try to draw attention to Biden's weakness and desperately pleaded with Democrats to stop him, Uygur explained that for some in politics, Joe Biden was a meal ticket.
When you talk about the DNC and Joe Biden's campaign, the top leadership in both of those places, their jobs 100% depends not on the Democrats winning, but on Joe Biden being the candidate. Joe Biden picked the leadership for the DNC. Joe Biden picked his campaign. The minute Joe Biden's not the candidate, all those people are fired. And there'll be new Democrats that take their positions. But for those people, winning is different than for you and I. For them, winning.
Holy shit. What is this? This is Mike is losing too much weight. We've got to stop it. The breakfast. Sausage and bacon and eggs and taters.
Is keeping their job. And as long as Joe Biden's the candidate, they keep their job, their power, their status, etc., which is super important to them in Washington. So they have a self-interest to honestly betray you, because even if they thought Joe Biden is the weakest possible candidate, it's
by the way, Cenk is totally right here. What happened, Cenk? What happened? What happened? What the fuck happened? Hassan really should have done an intervention with his uncle, like legitimately.
In their self-interest to lie to you.
Mike Donilon, the advisor whose name Biden forgot.
You've got it made. I'm so jealous. No, you're envious. You're envious. You're not jealous.
You're in 2019 was to be paid $4 million for his role in the months-long campaign. Orders of magnitude.
Jealous would imply that you have something that you're worried about losing. That's jealous. When you pet another dog than your dog, and your dog runs over and sticks their face into your hand, they're being jealous. They're worrying that you're not going to love them anymore, and you're going to replace them with this new dog.
All those people are fired, and there'll be new Democrats that take their positions. But for those people, winning is different than for you and I. For them, winning is keeping their job. And as long as Joe Biden's the candidate, they keep their job, their power, their status.
Not everyone speaks English as their first language. That's why I'm helping you learn the difference.
Etc., which is super important to them in Washington. So they have a self-interest to honestly betray you, because even if they thought Joe Biden is the weakest possible candidate, it's in their self-interest to lie to you.
Mike Donilon, The advisor, whose name Biden forgot in 2019, was to be paid an astonishing $4 million for his role in the months-long campaign, orders of magnitude greater than what all other staff were receiving, and he appears to have been fully paid even though the campaign was aborted. To have pushed Biden out of the race would have killed the goose that was about to lay a $4 million golden egg. The delusion was not just about Joe's condition, but also about the fact that he was having a very successful presidency. He clearly wasn't, but that's what they thought. Biden was actually massively unpopular with atrocious polling numbers, but his staff concluded, quote, "We don't need polling." Biden operatives constantly insisted that Bidenomics was delivering wondrous results for the American people, even as the American people themselves loudly disagreed. As one senior Democrat later put it, "You're in fantasy land. You're saying the economy's great, and voters are like, on what planet?" The Biden family.
Remember when I had this argument with Sam Cedar? You guys remember when I had this argument with Sam Cedar and I was like, he was a failure. The economy was dog shit. He was terrible. And they were like, no, he was so good. And it's like, Will Standstill, the Vibe Session people. I was there the whole time saying, just go by what people are saying.
He also seems to have been especially prone to delusions. Jill Biden, of course, infamously reassured Joe that he did such a great job and answered all the questions after he delivered the worst performance of any president in any debate in U.S. history.
Joe, you did such a great job. You answered every question. You knew all the facts.
This was like when my grandmother was demented and she finished her bowl of pudding.
What did Trump do? Why?
She then appeared on the cover of Vogue to say that we'll decide our future. Thank you very much. Tapper and Thompson conclude that there was a family dynamic built around the rejection of reality, which included a denial of the extent of Hunter Biden's misdeeds, for instance. Tapper and Thompson even report that when Biden's son Beau was diagnosed with cancer in 2013, Beau lied about the diagnosis, telling journalists that his doctor had given him a, quote, clean bill of health. That deception came partially at the encouragement of his father, Joe Biden, who instructed his team to mislead the media about his whereabouts when he visited his son in the hospital. Tapper and Thompson report that Beau's wife didn't understand why they had to keep his illness a secret. The fact that the Bidens have previously covered up a cancer diagnosis will only add fuel to current suspicions that Joe Biden's stage 4 prostate cancer was known about earlier than just recently, although medical professionals have said discovering the cancer this late is not actually implausible and is in fact quite common. If someone tries...
He's the president! What do you mean it's common? He's the president! He's not somebody on a bronze plan! He's the president of the United fucking States! He's not getting an appointment every 18 months. He's going in every fucking month. What do you mean? Plausible, it's not common. What the fuck are you talking about? I legitimately think that's insane. I think that is an insane position to take. He is a 80-year-old fucking man. His prostate should have been constantly being examined. The idea that he got to stage 4 and they're like, well, oops. Like, what? Are you kidding me?
To question Biden's fitness for office, Biden and his operatives would aggressively turn on them and shame them on social media. When David Axelrod raised perfectly reasonable concerns, Biden reportedly called him a prick. Biden's granddaughter opted for jerk. Early in 2024, special counsel Robert Hur reported after interviewing Biden that he wouldn't be prosecuting him for mishandling classified documents, in part because Biden's memory was so bad that a jury would be sympathetic to him.
Trump gets elected in November of 2017. 2016.
What?
2016. All right. So, why do I have 2017 here?
That's when you left office, January of 2017.
Okay. But that's when Trump gets sworn in.
Right.
January.
Right. Correct.
Okay. Yeah.
Biden world instantly turned on her, calling him a liar and a partisan. The media was discouraged from pursuing the story. When a reporter from a national news outlet planned to report on internal concerns about Biden's fitness, she received a call from the White House, who sent her the clear message that they would aggressively dispute it on the record and portray her as a liar. The reporter stopped the investigation. That journalist was not alone in taking a cowardly, tentative approach. One of the unspoken undercurrents of the original Sin book is that the media dropped the ball on a major scandal. Why, after all, are Tapper and Thompson telling all of us this now, long after Biden has left office? Well, what they don't say is it's because they failed in their duty as reporters during Biden's presidency. Tapper himself had aggressively questioned those who raised the issue of Biden's mental fitness, warning against, quote, diagnosing politicians.
And now he is the one who's going to profit. So when people like me correctly called it out, that was bad. We were evil. We were fringe voices. We were crazy. We were unreasonable. But now that it's too late to do anything about it, he'll profit and he'll shape the narrative.
From afar. And he has since said he shouldn't have done that.
I think what we see on stage with Joe Biden, Jake, is very clearly a cognitive decline.
Okay.
That's what I'm referring to. It makes me uncomfortable to watch somebody on stage search for
It's so amazing. It's so amazing to me that
try and figure out an answer.
A cognitive decline.
Well, when you're trying to tell me that what I was suggesting was
I think that you were mocking his stutter. Yeah, I think you were mocking his stutter, and I think you have absolutely no standing to diagnose somebody's cognitive decline. I would think that somebody in the Trump family would be more sensitive to people who do not have medical licenses diagnosing politicians from afar.
Plenty of others who were not formally part of the administration helped shut down criticism and preserve the myth of Biden's acuity by portraying discussion of Biden's mental and physical condition as offensive. Pod Save America's Tommy Viator said Robert Hur's remarks were an outrageous lie. He has now admitted, too late, that this was unfair. The American Prospect's Robert Kuttner says Hur was carrying out a hit job and seemed like a Republican operative. Any news org that puts Biden's memory in the headline is actively rewarding Hur's bad faith and giving the Trump campaign what they want, said Greg Sargent of the New Republic. The Congressional Integrity Project put out a brief on the lies and false claims of Robert Hur, which it appears to have since deleted.
Oh, is
Even
that right?
back in 2020, Democratic supporting pundits were running columns saying that criticizing Biden's fitness for office was ableism born out of laziness. Biden was just the same old lovable gaffe machine he'd always been. Well, recently, the audio tape of Robert Hur's interview with Biden came out, and he was vindicated. But the story of the Democratic Party's rise.
It's disgusting that both political parties require big lies to sustain the egos of their candidates. Every Republican has to pretend that Trump didn't lose in 2020 because his ego can't handle it. Every Democrat has to pretend that Biden isn't completely demented. Happy 4th. He's such a terrible president. And while that in and of itself doesn't demoralize me, the fact that people rush to defend this demented incompetent as if he was anything other than a conservative really gets me down. June 30th, 2023. I really hope this is the beginning of the end of the slavish support that demented Biden has shown for the genocidal apartheid state. Narrator, it wasn't. It's so pathetic that the so-called progressive movement in this country couldn't mount a credible challenger to Joe Biden, just allowed this war criminal and demented charlatan to waltz to the nomination without a challenge. Embarrassing. Actually try and pass the PRO Act instead of rotting in the West Wing with a demented brain. If the Democrats nominated a demented, unpopular loser without a serious primary, they deserve to lose. Voters don't owe politicians anything. July 26, 2023. This is just me searching demented. This isn't even me searching Biden. Just the word demented. Biden didn't really do much in the way of politicking with intransigent legislators. Evidence is that he wasn't able to do much, being demented and everything. He wasn't pragmatic. He was literally too old and demented to actually do the job. So many people have answered this question. At this point, you have to be demented to not remember, just like Joe, February 20th, 2024. No, I have principles where I don't just support a genocidal maniac who is demented. That happened because you scum trashed Bernie Sanders movement and rallied behind demented Joe Biden. Don't worry, we will crush you fuckers. Disgusting. And that's just me searching demented. If I search Biden, you know, hey, what did I say about Biden? Oh man. Hold on. I've been yelling about Biden this year, so these are all like relatively recent posts. We gotta get to older posts. It's just so funny how right we were and how completely clear I was about it and how people reacted to that honesty. You have to look at like, well, I'll have to find more good posts, but do you see how pathetic that is?
And this is important, goes far deeper than the disastrous 2024 presidential campaign. For one thing, Biden's not the only instance of Democrats trying to keep an aging politician in office, even at the expense of the party's own political success. Last year, party elites, including Nancy Pelosi, worked to hand the chairmanship of the House Oversight Committee to Jerry Connolly, a septuagenarian congressman dying of cancer, in order to prevent the dynamic young upstart Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez from becoming too powerful.
I've never had my chance to be a ranking member or chairman of a full committee. This is it.
As if the party should be dedicated to letting Connolly personally achieve his dreams rather than to achieving any political objectives. Connolly died just recently, proving yet again that many Democrats preferred incapacity to social democracy. Astonishingly, as Branko Marcetic points out, this preference for keeping the aging in power over achieving political objectives has ensured the passage of the Republican federal budget in the House. The Democratic Party, even post-Biden, is hugely unpopular despite voters' dissatisfaction with Trump. And the problem here predates Joe Biden. It's the same problem that we were writing about in Current Affairs in 2016, when the widely disliked Hillary Clinton was favored by party elites over Bernie Sanders. In that race, Democrats chose to run an uninspiring establishment candidate rather than embrace a populist alternative, and they lost to Donald Trump. The story of Democratic politics since Obama is the story of a party that has totally failed to connect with ordinary people, opening the door for a radical right-wing movement that could never succeed if Democrats would simply revive FDR-style social democratic politics, grow a backbone, get some charisma, and learn how to inspire and how to govern. Instead, all we hear are excuses and delusion. The Biden presidency was a low point, with an obviously unpopular and inept president being hailed by party elites as transformative and successful and sharp as a tack. But there are plenty of other case studies, including establishment figures and organizations lining up behind corrupt sexual harasser Andrew Cuomo against his dynamic Democratic opponent Zohran Mamdani in the current New York City mayoral race. Party elites have even tried to thwart David Hogg's effort to produce a younger cohort of Democratic politicians, despite the fact that Hogg isn't even attempting an ideological transformation of the party, merely engaging in an effort to ensure that those under 40 feel they have representation. Even if we think Biden is the reason Trump won in 2024, we still face the question of why Trump won in 2016, or why Biden barely squeaked into office in 2020, or why Republicans now control both houses of Congress. The broader tendency of the Democrats losing touch with working people cannot be pinned on Joe Biden alone, and fixing the problem will require overthrowing an entire leadership apparatus that has shown time and time.
By the way, let's assume we did it. Let's assume we stormed the beaches and we took the Democratic Party and we had a whole social democratic platform. Do you know what the centrist Democrats would do? They would dynamite the foundations on their way out. They would do scorched earth. You'd be in charge of ashes. They would not give you a fucking thing. They wouldn't line up behind you. They wouldn't say, okay, you guys won the vote. You're right. We do need to stop giving so much billionaire money to corporate consultant flunkies. You'd be fighting a counterinsurgency the entire time. Why bother? Why fucking bother? People hate the Democrats. They fucking hate them. Can we stop? It's not worth it. It's not worth it. It is not worth it. The Democratic Party doesn't have 45% of the people lined up behind them with passion and intensity, ready to vote blue no matter what. That's dead. It's gone. Stop fantasizing. It's not 1994.
Again, that it has no interest in fighting the right effectively. Thanks for watching. This video is a product of Current Affairs magazine, the country's leading independent left print magazine based here in New Orleans, Louisiana. Go to currentaffairs.org, to find out more about us at currentaffairs.org/subscribe to subscribe to our absolutely gorgeous bi-monthly print edition. Get it in your mailbox. You can also subscribe to the Current Affairs News Briefing.
We like current affairs. They're nice. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, we already watched this. Okay. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I want to show you the most based shit I've ever seen in my entire fucking life. And when I saw it, I was happy. Bill Burr is Michael Parenti posting.
You don't understand. You're dealing with people who are insatiable. You're dealing with people who are absolutely ruthless. We are dealing with addicts. It's not true that coke or heroin is the worst addiction in America, or cigarettes, or alcohol. The worst addiction, the most crippling, the most damaging addiction is wealth. These people are just out of control. They just want more and more and more. And they're not unlike the ruling classes of all history. If the ruling classes of all history have ever wanted anything, there's only one thing they've ever wanted, and that's everything. They want all the lands, all the choice crops, all the herds, all the rich mineral deposits. They want control of all the labor, all the markets. They want all the civilities and comforts and luxuries of civil society while paying none of the costs. They want everything. And then when they got everything, they want still more.
Let's fucking go! Parenti posting with Bill. He's posting communists of surprise. Let's fucking go. Somebody link me Bill's Insta. How am I not following Acid Communist? What? One of my favorite posters in the world.
You don't understand. You're dealing with people who are insatiable.
Oh, man. Another good Bill Burr link in Discord. All right, hold on. Obama world loses its shining, changing, hurting Democratic Party. Yes! Yes! Oh my God. Oh God, please let this be true. Please let this be true. This is my ultimate fantasy. I have hated Obama for decades at this point. And I've posted about this for a while. Because, again, I'm first. Let's look at my Obama posts. Mélenchon is live? Oh, that's awesome. Where is Barack Obama right now? Which billionaire yacht? Fucking loser. It's been 12 years since Obama said the fever will break during his campaign for a second term. On Inauguration Day 2025, the disease is now more virulent than ever. What is it going to take for Democrats to try something that isn't surrendering to the right? Obama was a fraud, and that failure led us to Trump. The Obama crew worked overtime to block Bernie. Democrats like Kamala and Obama are a large part of why we are in this mess. Realizing that and no longer thinking they are a solution is the first step. Barack Obama campaigned for Joe Lieberman over Lamont. Did you not know that? It's important to remember that Barack Obama directly inflicted this incompetence on the country because he wanted to block Bernie Sanders and actual social reform. Whereas Obama now that Trump won again. Another legacy of Obama's failures. Obama's neoliberal austerity wrecked the country. The more people trash Obama, the better. Obama was a terrible president. Obama's failures manifested the terrible political world we live in. Biden is the continuation of Obama in every way. Bernie outperformed Obama by 7 points, which is true. Bernie Sanders massively outperformed Obama in 2012. I don't remember you using that as an important signpost for why Bernie should have been the nominee in 2016. It's almost like you're a lying scumbag. Here's the proof, chat. Bernie Sanders got more votes than Obama did. Bernie Sanders got 8,000 more votes than Obama did in Vermont. He didn't just outperform him by percentages. He got 8,000 more votes. That's crazy. That's fucking crazy. Until people reject the legacy of Obama and Clinton completely, they will continue to fail. I've been saying this for years, that the moment the Democratic voters are willing to recognize that it was the failure of the Obama administration that led us to Trump and not just messaging, is the moment that we actually might make progress in this country. So seeing stuff like this, Obama world loses its shine, is the first step to actual progressive change. That's the best thing I've ever heard. And you should be anti-Obama. If you're not anti-Obama, you're not thinking straight. Adam Friedland could be the millennial Jon Stewart, but does he want that? I told you the vibes are shifting. I told you the vibes are shifting. Adam Friedland is at GQ. Let's fucking go. He went from, I mean, he went from podcasting about, never mind, I can't even say it because it's not part of my brand. It's not part of my brand to make the thing that's coming to my head. No, I'm not going to do it. But more vibes. Ireland is pushing forward a bill to boycott, place trade sanction on any products made in the internationally recognized occupied Palestine. Let's go. Let's fucking go. All right. What was I was looking at the Discord and the Gaza shit is like, I watched a debate Marxism had with Hutch. Holy shit. I have no solution for anything. It's so frustrating. All he did was deny real actions toward any change. My feeling about Hutch is he's actually subnormal IQ and he doesn't know anything. And so even me reacting for the purpose of like debunking is not worth it. Because I don't feel like any normal person watches Hutch and goes, wow, good point, Hutch, so smart. Wow, well argued. You know a lot. Like nobody is saying that. So like me watching his shit is actually just promoting him and getting him in people's algorithms. And honestly, he's not even like, he's not smart enough to even be a foil. Because like when you have a foil, like say you were trying to set up like a liberal cuck that we would make fun of all the time and like use to disprove liberalism, he's not smart enough for there to be verisimilitude. Because people would look at you debating Hutch and go, this guy doesn't represent liberals. You guys picked the biggest idiot you could find. That's just not fair. Like you need somebody who's smart enough that it seems like they actually land some counter punches once in a while so that people think, oh, that's a fair representation of liberals, right? Like if he's too weak of a debater, even if you set him up as like your cock that you constantly humiliate, it's not going to work because people will be like, you're picking someone who's faking he's faking being that dumb. Like, you see what I mean? So he's just not good enough for that role, even though that's his biggest dream. So that's why I don't watch it. Cause it just like, he's not, no liberal's going to see Hutch and go, yeah, he's smart. He represents me. They're going to be like, you picked the biggest idiot. Okay. Great conversation happening in the black community online right now. Mike might not want to weigh in, LOL, but I'm glad it's happening. I completely disagree. I completely disagree with this. I think this is a TikTok pick-me. TikTok, that male pick-me's exist. All right? Like, male pick-me's are rare, but they do exist. And, like, I don't feel like that's actually a constructive... Just as cringe as female pick-me's are, male pick-me's are just as cringe. And this is somebody who, coming from me, a feminist. And like the way that pick-me's generally talk, what makes someone a pick-me is the way they phrase, the way they talk. It's if they are talking to the group of people that they're trying to pander to, in a way, tells that group that there's nothing that they could do collectively to change, right? Where you just are making excuses and you are drawing responsibility and disempowering the group that you're talking to. If you're pandering to a group and telling them they're all good and what really needs to happen is another group needs to do stuff, that's being a pick-me. Now, there are certain circumstances where that is just correct. Like a truly oppressed group has not, doesn't have any blame. But when you're just talking about like people in America who make a lot of money, that's not, I don't think that's accurate. Okay, I can't find the video. Somebody said in the Discord and then I scrolled like 40 messages and didn't see it. So yeah. Some hope core, Mike?
Liberation movements may lose battles, but still win the war. In Algeria, France crushed the resistance in Algiers. They tortured fighters, bombed villages, and killed millions. But the people didn't stop. In the mountains, in exile, in secret, they kept fighting. And by 1962, Algeria was liberated. In Haiti, enslaved people rose up against the most powerful empire of the 18th century. And in 1804, they won. It was the first Black Republic, and the only successful slave revolt in history. The Mau Mau in Kenya were hunted, jailed, and tortured, but their uprising cracked the foundations of an empire, and Kenya gained independence in 1963. The Vietnamese faced tanks, napalms, and empires, and in 1954, at the Dien Bien Phu, they brought France to its knees. It wasn't just a battle, it was the beginning, and the list goes on and on, from Ireland to South Africa. In Palestine, it is bleak, held in between famine and genocide. facing the strongest empire in the history of the world. But don't forget, these struggles are not measured in years, but decades and centuries. And just know that liberation is coming.
So there was a great new poll in Hebrew that reveals that everything that me and others...
Okay. Somebody says Hassan did misinfo. This is very interesting. I'm sorry to derail the conversation, but the current online leftist movement is often extremely wrong and misinformed on Syria. Assad is often spreading misinformation and dismissed criticism, and I feel helpless in where to begin to bring a more realistic voice. I am an activist. I have gotten change on the ground both in Syria and elsewhere as a refugee/leftist activist. I feel like you're not going to like the truth, which is the government of Syria is an Al-Qaeda affiliate puppet of the United States and Israel. Like, that's not misinformation. That's just the reality. Like, I don't know what else to say. Like, can you allow me to give my view? There's no view. Those are just facts. Those are just the facts.
Interesting race. And then sadly, I saw these clips of ICE going in and just fucking ripping these people out of their homes, and mothers and grandmothers and children screaming, no warrant. If fellow U.S. citizens are like, what are you doing? They like intimidate them, arrest them and shit. This is like Gestapo type of stuff, and it just blows my mind that there's a certain ugly segment of the American population that's enjoying watching these families getting ripped out of their homes. And you somehow think that America is going to be better if this is done. Like, so what? So they took those people out. They're taking these brown people out that are living week to week. And somehow you feel like if they get them out of the country, your boss who's not paying you a living wage will suddenly start paying you a living wage. What would be a great thing is everybody read up on the history of these that have run these companies. They have not wanted to pay Americans a living wage ever. They've never wanted to pay us a living wage. And the only reason why they do is because there's laws. And the only reason why there is laws is because people died during protests to start unions. And the fucking psychos that run these companies didn't want to pay a living wage, and eventually they took their factories out of the country so they could go back to not paying a living wage in the form of sweatshop labor. And now they're eventually working their way towards this. The same billionaires that didn't want to pay in the 1800s, way back to the feudal system, they've never wanted to pay you. They don't want to pay you, and they just keep blaming people that don't look like you, that don't.
Shiraz's affiliation with Al-Qaeda is due to him volunteering to fight the U.S. invasion in Iraq. He joined a civilian resistance group and was absorbed. I would like to clarify I'm a trans woman and not a fan of him in any way, but I want to say the truth. So where was the misinformation? There are documents proving he did not come. Well, you have a document. Well, so the United States just puts... Wait. So you're saying the United States just puts innocent men on the most wanted terrorist list? Wait. You're saying the United States of America just puts innocent men as most wanted terrorists? Giant Ozzy, thank you for the prime. Chaotic, thank you for the tier 3. And what made them want to change? But why did the U.S. suddenly decide he was a good guy? Why did the U.S. suddenly decide he was such a good guy? The Syrian revolution is much more than one man. That one man being the dictator of the country. The military dictator of the country. He doesn't represent the movement. All right, well... CIA, good try. Speaking of CIA, chat, if you want to piss off the CIA, please consider supporting this stream by subscribing at tier 1, tier 2, or tier 3 sub. If you have Amazon Prime, you can attach that to your Twitch account. You get 1 free sub a month. That's your Twitch Prime sub, because every single time you subscribe, chat, you piss off Ethan Klein.
Mike from PA, who is as hit. Mike from PA, to me, is a full-on grifter. One day, I'm going to do a video on this guy. He is the most pathetic dipshit.
There's footage of him killing prisoners. Well, those guys deserved it. Don't you know this person's a trans woman?
All of Twitch. And just to show you how easy this grift is, this guy is like relatively successful.
Why are you downplaying the revolution? Because you said there was misinformation, and then all I did was speak facts, and then... you never actually admitted that it was misinformation. Why am I downplaying him as a good guy? Because he's giving up Syria territory to Israel. He's surrendering Syrian territory to Israel. He's allowing Israel to annex large swaths of Syria. And he's being endorsed by the American and Israeli government because of that. Which means he doesn't care about Syria. He doesn't care about Syrians. He likes having power. And that's why, you know, he's not calling what Israel is doing a genocide and standing up to them. Sounds like he's a puppet. Anyway, back to, if you want to piss off Ethan Klein,
he's
subscribe.
Like not talented. He is vile, and he is cringe as fuck. What's his average view count?
Probably like a couple K.
Couple K?
Does he really get a couple K?
Nice. And somehow he still succeeded. You know? He has 7,000 members or something. Every time I see that number, I'm like, whoa. I'm happy to say that his sub count is getting lower.
Chat! We only have 6,881 subs! Don't make Ethan Klein! No! Right now, chat, we have a hype train going on. The top sub gifter and the top bit donor get those conductor badges next to your name. When you subscribe to the channel, you get access to clipping and VODs. You get the ability to use the emotes all over this website. Don't forget to give bits, chat. For only 200 bits, you could also get that conductor badge, which is that golden locomotive in the chat. And then you get a purple locomotive unlocked for free. Why did I keep clicking out of this?
Mike from PA, to me, is a he has 7,000 members or something. Every time I see that number, I'm like, whoa. I'm happy to say that his sub count is getting lower.
Is it?
Yeah, I mean, it's closer to 8,000 before. I mean, every time I look, he has between 7,000 and 8,000 paying members, which is pretty disturbing, but it is what it is.
Like, I gotta be honest, I don't even notice when Ethan Klein talks about me. I legitimately don't notice. Somebody has to tell me.
Mike from PA, 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 Mike from PA,
Mike from PA,
Mike from PA, Mike from PA, Mike from PA, Mike from PA,
Mike from PA,
Mike from PA. Mike from PA to me is a full-on.
By the way, being a grifter is running for office 6 years before you ever came on Twitch as a progressive, supported Bernie Sanders in 2015 and 2016, worked for the Majority Report in 2019, and then started my show at the end of that year. That's grifting, guys. I was grifting 6 years before I ever did anything online. Guys, pure grift. Well, chat, we are 13 subs away from the daily sub goal. Right now, nobody cheered, but Krill-tacular is the leading sub gifter with 5. Hogan Long, thank you for gifting a sub to Ethan Klein H3H3. Green Bass Guy, thank you for the 5. Krill-tacular, thank you for the 5. You guys are the best. Thank you for supporting the stream. It means a lot. Fat Manda, thank you for the tier 1. Can you play the song? It's a banger. We can't get the song yet. 2 Punch 2 Furious, thank you for the 10 tier 1s. And Hogan Log, thank you for the biddies. Okay, what did I want to watch? Oh, Bernie Sanders came out to speak on what's going on in Gaza.
Senator Sanders, do you think there's ever a prospect of the US changing its stance, its support for Israel when it comes to this current conflict in Gaza?
Not with the president we have right now.
Prod Richard, thank you.
What's going on in Gaza is unspeakable. I have led the effort in the US Senate to stop US military aid going to Netanyahu to continue horrible, horrible war. And as bad as what has gone on for the last several years, what I fear, this is almost unbelievable, is I think as many people know, Trump is talking about forcibly expelling the 2.2 million people in Gaza so he can build a playground for billionaires. I mean, it is beyond belief, and obviously we're going to do everything we can to try to reverse policy. And I would simply say that in America there are more people who are outraged by what's going on in Gaza than I think the rest of the world understands. We don't see that representation in Congress.
We don't, and we see young people rallying pro-Palestinian causes. Why isn't it trickling up, if you will, to the political leaders?
Well, that is a very good question. And the answer has everything to do with money and a corrupt campaign finance system. And I don't know how familiar people in Ireland are with our campaign finance system, but essentially if you are a wealthy person, a billionaire, you can start what's called a super PAC, put unlimited, hundreds of millions of dollars, and then if you do what I don't want you to do, I'm going to beat you. So it's a corrupt system, and I think that's a major reason why more Democrats and even some Republicans are not standing up.
We had the awful shootings this week in Washington of the 2 Israeli diplomats, but Benjamin Netanyahu came out and said that was linked to the anti-Israeli rhetoric, to the negative soundings coming from politicians.
That's what Netanyahu's whole position has been. That's what he said. I am Jewish. I detest anti-Semitism, as I hope everybody does. It's a horribly destructive ideology. But to be critical of Netanyahu's right-wing extremist government, who have killed some 53,000 people in Gaza already, mostly women and children, that is not anti-Semitic. That is taking on an extremist, ugly government that is doing terrible things.
The Trump administration has also accused Harvard of being anti-Semitic, and as a result, they're banning them from enrolling foreign students. What did you make of that?
Well, I hope and believe the courts in the United States will not allow that to happen. But in fact, what Netanyahu wanted and what Trump is following through on is to equate any criticism of Israel with being anti-Semitic. It's like someone criticized the Irish government, suddenly we hate Irish people. It's insane, but that is what they're trying to do.
Staying with Donald Trump, I don't know if you saw, I know you were in meetings today, but he has tweeted today that he wants to impose 50% tariffs on the EU, 25% tariffs on Apple, and it sent the markets into free fall.
By the way, nobody even believes this shit anymore. Nobody even believes it. Anyway, I gave the CIA agent, the paid activist, enough chance to say something, and it was all... They led with misinformation, basically accusing Hassan of doing misinformation. When they were countered with facts, they started nuance mongering without actually providing any nuance. And then that was that. They started molding. Oh, I'm sorry. Am I not falling for the CIA operation? Oh, did I not fall for it? Oh, did I not fall for it? Oh, no. Damn.
What's your take on his tariff
stance? Wait till tomorrow.
Here's what I want you to understand. I oppose the CIA. I oppose American foreign policy. All right? So if you're here to go like, well, American foreign policy is good, blah, 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 you're my enemy. We don't see eye to eye. If we were on a battlefield, we'd be on different sides of it. Like, I will never support you. I will never assist you. Ever.
Different. I mean, that's one of the problems we have. It's what we call a chaotic situation. These are not thought out discussions with economic advisors. This is probably something he thought of 5 minutes before he wrote a tweet. Maybe it was in the middle of the night. He couldn't sleep. Who knows?
Nuance mongering is when people say, you don't understand the nuance, and then they don't actually provide the nuance. Like, they will dismiss an argument that's logically consistent and empirically founded by saying, well, it's more nuanced than that. But then they don't actually provide a counter argument or any kind of actual nuance, right? Or they try to take a generalized statement that includes exceptions and say that you don't allow for any exceptions ever, which is not what you said. So that is nuance mongering. Nuance mongering is basically pretending as if somebody is making an extreme statement that has no exception or nuance in it, or saying, or just, in response to a well articulated argument, claiming that the person doesn't see any nuance without actually providing any counter argument about nuance.
That's what we're dealing with in the United States now. We're dealing with a government which is coming increasingly under oligarchic control. It's, Musk, to talk about a campaign finance system, as you may know, Musk contributed $270 million to Trump's campaign. He then became the most important person in government. That's the way the system works. And we're very concerned. What you talked about at Harvard is just one part of a pattern of moving toward authoritarianism. President of the United States does not have the right to do what Trump is doing every single day. It's against our Constitution and it's against the law.
You look at what he is doing every single day, tariffs, immigration. These are things he said he would do. He was elected to do them. Is he not just a politician keeping his promises?
No. In some respects, yes. He said he would close the borders, and he has done that, and he deserves some credit for that. But all of this other stuff, going after Harvard, picking up people off of the streets, foreign students, throwing them into a van, transporting them to El Salvador, that is so grossly unconstitutional, that it's hard to believe that a president of the United States would do it. He is suing media in the United States. Unprecedented, totally wrong, going after law firms who represented clients that he didn't like. It is a very serious problem. So it's not only oligarchy, it's not only authoritarianism, it is kleptocracy. This guy enriching themselves in just shameless ways. So.
You obviously are a very vocal critic, but where are the Democratic Party? People are saying they're silent, they haven't been out there, they haven't been fighting Donald Trump. What's happening with that party?
Well, that's a long story. Unfortunately, I think a number of years ago, the Democratic Party lost its way. It once was the party of the American working class under Roosevelt, under Truman, even under Kennedy. But over the years, I think it got captured by corporate money. And in that sense, it has become more conservative, much more conservative than it should be. And the results are that working class people have left the Democratic Party in large numbers.
One of the big issues facing the Democratic Party are divisions, divides, a lack of unity, different wings, different factions. Are you not part of that problem? You lead a very big bloc that perhaps disagrees with the Democratic leadership. Is that not an issue?
No, it's a very good thing. In fact, there was just a poll that came out the other day. I think 75% of Democrats support positions that I'm advocating. The real question is why you have an establishment, often dominated by big money, that is so reluctant to allow young people, working class people to come into the party and to fight for the kinds of changes that the United States desperately needs.
I know you have extended the good wishes to Joe Biden when we got the news this week of his cancer diagnosis, but there's a lot of speculation, there's a lot of claims, there's a lot of concerns that there was a cover-up in the White House about his health and his cognitive decline. Had you those concerns? You would have interacted with him a lot.
I think a lot of that comes from people who worked on Kamala Harris's campaign, who managed to lose a campaign which should have clearly been won. Kamala Harris is a friend of mine. I've known her for many years, and I like her.
And this is what's wrong with Bernie Sanders as a politician. This is why he failed. That's it. He failed because they don't consider you a friend, bro. Friends don't stick knives in the back of friends. They're not your friend, bro.
But the consultants that advise the same consultants.
The consultants which they love and adore.
Now we're saying, oh, if we had more time, it's all Joe Biden's fault. These are the guys who told Kamala not to talk about working class issues, not to go on shows, talk about who she was with an authenticity that she should have used. So don't fool yourself. A lot of that is guys trying to cover their own backsides to divert attention away from the very bad campaign that they should have won and they lost.
Who can save the Democratic Party? Who should be the next presidential candidate? AOC,
That's
Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez?
No, wrong question now. We don't need, there are a lot of wonderful people out there who can, I think, be great leaders. Right now, our focus, and I'm working day and night on this, is to build a grassroots movement. That's what we need. It's not who's going to be the great leader. We don't need great leaders. We need a movement of millions and millions of working class people, young people who want to bring massive transformation to how we do things in the United States. Okay?
Just finally, now you're here to meet with trade union leaders. You're giving a big trade union linked address tomorrow. How important is the trade union movement, and what will be your message from that stance when you meet with trade union leaders?
It's enormously important. In the United States, we're seeing a revitalization of the trade union movement. We are seeing unions now more popular than they have been for a very long time. And the reason is that people in the United States, and I expect in Ireland, understand that the very richest people in this world are becoming phenomenally richer, while in the United States, working class people are struggling to
Listen, he sounds completely lucid to me. Like, he doesn't sound like he's old at all. I mean, occasionally his dentures get loose, let's be honest, but he sounds completely lucid to me.
Food on the table. And people understand that if you want decent wages, decent benefits, decent working conditions, you got to be part of a union.
Senator Bernie Sanders, thank you very much for speaking with us.
Thank you very
appreciate
much.
it.
I need to get myself some professional photography done. Look at these photos. I need to get some professional photography done. Look at this. We got like in a windstorm shit. Like, I need some of this. They're like, I've got my glasses off. Like,
thank you. And it's a tremendous honor for me to be here with Gabor, one of the intellectual and moral giants of our time. This time next week, I will be in Cairo with the great cartoonist Joe Sacco, who wrote Palestine and Footnotes in Gaza. And we will be beginning our book on the genocide by interviewing Palestinians in Cairo, a book my publisher, who's made handsome profits off me in the past, Simon & Schuster, has already told me they don't want. My old office in Gaza is a pile of rubble. The streets around it, where I went for coffee, ordered maftool or manakish, had a haircut, are flattened. Friends and colleagues are dead, or more often have vanished. Last heard from weeks or months ago, no doubt buried somewhere under the broken slabs of concrete. The uncounted dead in the tens, perhaps hundreds of thousands. Israel has made Gaza a wasteland. 50 million tons of rubble and debris. Rats and dogs scavenge amid the ruins and the fetid pools of raw sewage. The putrid stench and contamination of decaying corpses rises from beneath the mountains of shattered concrete. Palestinians, 90% of whom are displaced, risk death from unexploded ordnance left behind after 18 months of airstrikes, artillery barrages, missile strikes, and blasts from tank shells, and a variety of toxic substances, including raw sewage and asbestos. Israel, supplied with billions of dollars of weapons from the United States, Germany, Italy, and the UK, created this hell, and it intends to maintain it. The blockade of all food and humanitarian aid since March 2nd, that's more than 60 days, has resulted in outbreaks of hepatitis A caused by drinking contaminated water, ailments such as scabies, malnutrition. 60,000 children show signs of malnutrition. 57 Palestinians have starved so far since March 2nd, most of them elderly and children. Starvation, widespread nausea, and vomiting. Palestinians in Gaza live in makeshift tents, encamped amid these slabs of concrete. Many have been forced to move over a dozen times. 9 in 10 homes have been destroyed or damaged. Apartment blocks, schools, hospitals, bakeries, mosques, universities. Israel blew up Isra University in Gaza City and the Turkish Palestinian Hospital on March 21st in controlled demolitions. Cemeteries, shops, offices, all have been obliterated. The United Nations Relief and Works Agency for Palestine Refugees in the Near East, UNRWA, estimates that clearing Gaza of the rubble will take 15 years and cost between $40 billion and $50 billion. But any rebuilding of Gaza, Israel and the Trump administration have decided, will not be done for the Palestinians. And Israeli organizations, including the far-right Nakala organization, have held conferences to prepare for Jewish colonization of Gaza once Palestinians are removed. This is the last chapter of the genocide, accentuated by the decision by Israel's security cabinet to occupy all of Gaza and remain there indefinitely while emptying the northern part of the Gaza Strip completely of Palestinians. It is the final blood-soaked push to drive the Palestinians from Gaza. No food, no medicine, no shelter, no clean water, no electricity. Israel has turned Gaza into a Dante-esque cauldron of human misery, where Palestinians are being killed in their hundreds and soon again in their thousands and tens of thousands, or they will be forced out, never to return. This final chapter marks the end of Israeli lies, the lie of the two-state solution, the lie that Israel respects the laws of war that protect civilians, the lie that Israel bombs hospitals and schools only because they are used as staging areas by Hamas, the lie that Hamas uses civilians as human shields, while Israel routinely forces captive Palestinians to enter potentially booby-trapped tunnels and buildings ahead of Israeli troops. The lie that Hamas or Palestine Islamic Jihad are responsible, the charge often being errant Palestinian rockets, for the destruction of hospitals, United Nations buildings, or mass Palestinian casualties. The lie that humanitarian aid to Gaza is blocked because Hamas is hijacking the trucks or smuggling weapons and war material. The lie that Israeli babies are beheaded or Palestinians carried out mass rape of Israeli women. The lie that 75% of the tens of thousands killed in Gaza were Hamas, quote-unquote, terrorists. The lie that Hamas, because it was allegedly rearming and recruiting new fighters, is responsible for the breakdown of the ceasefire on March 18th, a breakdown that has seen more than 2,300 Palestinians killed, 6,000 injured, adding to the official death toll of 52,000, with, of course, thousands, perhaps tens of thousands more under the rubble. Israel's naked genocidal project is exposed. The few remaining food kitchens will close within days, now that the UN's World Food Program and UNRWA's food stocks have run out. Mass starvation will follow, along with deaths by disease caused by contaminated water and food, and scores of killed and wounded each day under the relentless assault of bombs, missiles, shells, and bullets. Nothing, if Israel has its way, will function. Bakeries, water treatment, sewage plants, hospitals, distribution centers, clinics. Less than half of the 53 emergency vehicles operated by the Palestine Red Crescent Society are functional because of fuel shortages, and soon there will be none. Israel's message is unequivocal. Gaza will be uninhabitable. Leave or die. And the images from Gaza during the past 18 months were awful, but what is coming now will be worse. It will rival the most atrocious war crimes of the 20th century, including the mass starvation, wholesale slaughter, and leveling of the Warsaw Ghetto in 1943 by the Nazis. October 7th marked the dividing line between an Israeli policy that advocated the brutalization and subjugation of the Palestinians and a policy that calls for their extermination and removal from historic Palestine. What we are witnessing is the equivalent of the moment triggered by the annihilation of some 200 soldiers led by George Armstrong Custer in June 1876 at the Battle of the Little Bighorn. After that humiliating defeat, Native Americans were targeted for extermination, with the remnants forced into prisoner of war camps, later renamed reservations, where thousands died of disease, lived under the merciless gaze of their armed occupiers, and fell into a life of immiseration and despair. Expect the same for the Palestinians in Gaza, dumped, I fear, in one of the world's hellholes and forgotten. The expansion of Greater Israel, which includes the seizing of Syrian territory in the Golan Heights, southern Lebanon, Gaza, of course, and the occupied West Bank, where some 40,000 Palestinians have been driven from their homes and which I expect will soon be annexed by Israel, is being cemented into place. But the genocide in Gaza is only the start. The world is breaking down under the onslaught of the climate crisis, which is triggering mass migrations, failed states, catastrophic wildfires, hurricanes, storms, flooding, and droughts. As global stability unravels, industrial violence, which is decimating the Palestinians, will become ubiquitous. Israel's annihilation of Gaza marks the death of a global order guided by internationally agreed upon laws and rules, ones often violated by the United States in its imperial wars in Vietnam, Iraq, and Afghanistan, but the one that was at least acknowledged as a utopian vision. The United States and its Western allies not only supply the weaponry to sustain the genocide.
It's not just the weaponry. We are actively aiding and abetting and committing the genocide ourselves.
But obstruct the demand by most nations for adherence to humanitarian law. They have carried out attacks against the only nation, Yemen, which has tried to halt the genocide. The militarized drones, helicopter gunships, walls and barriers, checkpoints, coils of concertina wire, watchtowers, detention centers, deportations, brutality, and torture, denial of entry visas, apartheid existence that comes with being undocumented, loss of individual rights, and electronic surveillance are as familiar to the desperate migrants along the Mexican border or attempting to enter Europe as they are to the Palestinians. And the message the global North has given to the rest of the world is this: we have everything, and if you try and take it away from us, we will kill you. Thank you.
Thank you. I like Chris Hedges. I really do like him, and I like his communication quite a bit. And I don't agree with him on a lot of very important points. But on this, we can agree and we can unite. So it's really powerful to see him out there. All right, everybody. I think I'm gonna call that for today. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today. Don't forget that each day we post more content on the YouTube. If you want more Mike from PA content, we are posting more content every day. Ethan Klein and Asmongold are attacking me for being right. We have more shorts popping off. And make sure you get in there, support the stream, check out the YouTube channel. All right, and with that, I am sending y'all over to VO. We're starting to slowly pop up. We're slowly cooking. We're slowly starting to cook. All right, everybody, stay safe out there. Solidarity forever, my friends. I'll see you all tomorrow. And here's all my links. Stay safe. Free Palestine. Solidarity forever. Say hi to VO for me. DSA Sniffas in the chat. DSA Sniffas in the chat. And I'll see you all tomorrow. Peace out.